Imagine countless worlds scattered across the night sky that look exactly like our home planet. The latest detections of alien worlds throughout the past few years have turned out to be completely mind-blowing, and a great number of them might soon be reachable with our advancing human capabilities. Just pause and reflect on that reality. Complex societies spanning across billions of years could have easily developed, flourished, and collapsed into ruin long before the planet Earth was ever even created in space. However, if we possess the drive to extend our reach across the cosmos in a dedicated search for life, thriving on foreign celestial bodies, is it possible that those very entities are also extending their reach toward us? Furthermore, is it conceivable that they have been actively doing this for thousands of generations? Could the reality be that prehistoric societies, consisting of ancient space travellers from incredibly distant star systems, relocated from their native cosmic regions and ultimately discovered Earth? The sheer scale of what this means for the human race is absolutely staggering. There exists a profound gateway waiting to be opened within the cosmos. Passing through that threshold offers us the ultimate assurance of uncovering absolute reality. It forces each of us to completely re-examine and challenge every single piece of information we have been instructed to believe throughout our entire lives. The structural proof of this reality surrounds us completely in every direction. The ultimate destiny of our species is unfolding directly in front of our faces. We are not living in isolation on this world. We have absolutely never been alone in the dark. At the launch site of Cape Canaveral, located in the state of Florida, the calendar reads April 18th, 2018. Precisely at the time of 6:51 in the evening, an advanced Falcon 9 booster rocket ignites its engines and surges upward into the sky on a specialized mission to position the most state-of-the-art space observation instrument into a stable orbit around our planet. This advanced machine is widely known as the Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite, though most people simply refer to it by its acronym TESS. The TESS machinery functions essentially as an all-encompassing map maker for the entirety of the night sky. It is executing a meticulous scan of our immediate interstellar neighbourhood, focusing on stars located within a radius of roughly 100 light-years, to pinpoint any orbiting worlds that might be circling around those stellar bodies. As we look forward across the upcoming 10 years, the global scientific community anticipates with great confidence that the TESS telescope will successfully complete its primary objectives by locating thousands of these unique cosmic bodies that astronomers label as exoplanets. When we use the term exoplanets, we are specifically describing celestial bodies that exist entirely outside the boundaries of our own solar system. Without a doubt, our current generation is living directly inside a spectacular golden age of planetary identification and cosmic revelation. If you look back just a mere 20 years into the past, human astronomers possessed absolutely no concrete confirmation as to whether there were any other Earth-like worlds anywhere else in the vast expanse of the cosmos. Yet today, in our current time, it is almost impossible for us to comprehend how we could possibly identify these alien worlds at a speed any faster than we already are, while still attempting to catalogue and comprehend the overwhelming influx of new information. It has become an intense ongoing effort for researchers just to keep pace with the massive wave of cosmic data that is being delivered to our laboratories right now. It is truly a very recent milestone in human history, achieved only through the engineering of deep space monitoring craft and incredibly high-powered cosmic telescopes, that we have finally unlocked a truly precise and detailed comprehension of foreign planets, particularly those specific worlds that possess the exact environmental conditions necessary to sustain human biology. Yet, if you look back at our historical timeline, it was actually not that long ago when the mere suggestion that Earth-like worlds could be scattered throughout our local galaxy was not simply treated as an unverified concept. Instead, it was viewed by the authorities as a dangerous act of religious execution. During the historical period of the 16th century, a brilliant Italian philosopher and advanced cosmologist named Giordano Bruno openly shared his deep philosophical conviction regarding an endless infinity of coexisting worlds. He courageously brought forward the distinct possibility that these other foreign planets could easily serve as a home for living entities. Because he chose to speak these ideas, the ruling powers officially accused him of committing severe heresy, and they sentenced him to be tied to a wooden post and burned to death in public. To hold a firm belief that alien organisms could be thriving out there in the dark depths of space was viewed by society as a highly dangerous, treasonous, and heretical thought. Because of this strict control, Giordano Bruno was brutally executed by fire directly in the public pathways of Rome. What was the exact nature of the transgression that cost him his life? His only offence was having the bravery to proclaim that there are living space beings existing out there on other planetary bodies. During those dark historical times, people were completely forbidden by the law from allowing their minds to contemplate such radical concepts. These cosmic ideas posed a direct, destabilising threat to all of the established cultural assumptions and the deeply rooted control structures of the ruling elite. The authorities rigidly maintained that no alternative worlds existed anywhere in reality, and that there was absolutely nothing but empty void waiting out there. However, the reality is that there is absolutely something profound waiting out there in the dark. There is no longer any valid reason to doubt that truth. Even as recently as the opening years of the decade of the 1990s, professional astronomers still lacked the necessary technical instruments to visually observe or even verify the presence of these highly isolated, distant worlds. Even when utilising the absolute highest powered visual telescopes available on Earth, the physical act of catching a glimpse of a far-off exoplanet remains an extraordinary challenge. To grasp just how difficult this is, try to picture yourself trying to clearly spot a tiny, dim firefly that is flying directly adjacent to an incredibly blinding commercial spotlight. This visual task is exceptionally tough to achieve because stars generate and radiate their own immense, brilliant light directly out into space. They are massive engines of independent illumination, whereas planets do not create light at all and can only reflect a tiny fraction of the starlight that strikes their surfaces. When you calculate the math, a standard star shines with a brightness that is roughly 10 billion times more intense than the faint, reflected illumination coming off an orbiting planet. Fortunately, due to truly astonishing leaps forward in our engineering and computing capabilities, space researchers successfully achieved the historic first discovery of a verified exoplanet in the year 1992, using a highly sophisticated ground-based observatory telescope. However, that slow-moving cosmic investigation shifted into absolute overdrive in the year 2009, which marked the historic launch of the Kepler Space Telescope. This was the initial piece of space hardware that was engineered and optimized for the singular purpose of tracking down exoplanets. As the timeline advanced to the year 2018, the aging Kepler instrument was officially succeeded by the significantly more advanced and vastly more powerful TESS hardware. One of the most incredibly fascinating engineering features regarding the TESS satellite, which represents the latest observation asset that NASA has positioned in the heavens, is that it was systematically constructed to isolate and track exoplanets by utilizing a specific technique known throughout the scientific community as the transit method. This observation strategy operates on the principle that whenever an orbiting planet crosses directly in front of the face of its parent star, from our point of view, it momentarily obstructs a tiny percentage of that star's light emission, allowing us to observe the star's light output dipping or blinking in a predictable pattern. That highly specific, recognizable reduction in light output serves as the primary indicator, revealing to astronomers that a planetary body is likely passing across the star's surface. The precise regularity of these recurring light dips provides crucial calculations regarding the planet's exact orbital speed and path, making it the most efficient baseline strategy for discovering entirely new planetary systems across the galaxy. Even though the very first goals established for the global search for exoplanets were quite simple, mostly aiming to calculate a basic estimate of how many stars throughout our local galaxy might actually have planets circling around them, the concrete numbers that came back from the research were completely overwhelming. Our home galaxy, the Milky Way, contains a massive population of approximately 400 billion individual stars. Based on the extensive observation data that we have gathered up to this point, it appears that on an absolute statistical average, every single star you see in the sky is orbited by at least one companion planet. When you follow that data to its logical conclusion, it means there are, at a bare minimum, 400 billion individual planets operating within our single galaxy. Let that number sink in. 400 billion unique worlds existing inside the borders of the Milky Way galaxy completely on its own. The verification of such a truly mind-boggling volume of exoplanets signifies a complete and total transformation in how the human race understands the fundamental architecture of the cosmos. Yet, there is an even more radical and disruptive concept to consider: the growing realization that millions of those newly discovered planets might actually possess the exact environmental conditions required to not only maintain existing biological life, but to actively spark it into existence from scratch. To push this investigation forward, astronomers and elite astrophysicists are focusing their primary efforts on scanning a very specific spatial boundary that they colloquially call the Goldilocks zone. The specialized region, known as the Goldilocks zone, refers precisely to the perfect orbital distance surrounding any given star, where surface temperatures allow water to remain in a stable, liquid form on the surface of a planet. When hunting for a truly viable world, we are looking for a planet that is not positioned too dangerously close to its host star, nor left drifting too far away in the frozen dark from its primary source of heat, but is instead located at a distance that is just right. We are mapping out worlds that could potentially contain life-giving oxygen and stable H2O molecules, which are the essential building blocks capable of generating a protective atmosphere and ultimately giving rise to living organisms. When analysing our current scientific observations, research teams are absolutely stunned by the sheer volume of potentially habitable alien worlds that are safely positioned inside these domestic Goldilocks parameters. If you take the baseline of at least 400 billion total planets spinning inside our galaxy and isolate a mere 1% of that massive population, you are still left looking at billions of independent worlds that possess the core traits necessary to host life. This realization is incredibly exhilarating because for a long time, humanity operated under the cultural assumption that we were the only active game in the entire universe, believing that life was an incredibly rare fluke that could only manifest on the planet Earth. The successful tracking and documentation of exoplanets has fundamentally altered our entire scientific perspective regarding the true potential for biology to exist across the cosmos. If you look at the big picture, the vast majority of modern space scientists would now openly agree that some distinct form of biological life is thriving elsewhere in the vast emptiness of outer space. Yet, even with this massive abundance of perfectly located, habitable exoplanets right in front of us, a large percentage of conventional researchers still stubbornly hold onto the conservative idea that the only types of organisms likely to exist outside of Earth are simple, single-celled microbes or basic bacterial colonies. They display an intense intellectual resistance to what they dismissively label as highly speculative or far-fetched theories, suggesting that these far-off planets might host not just primitive organisms, but highly sophisticated, deeply evolved and exceptionally intelligent civilizations, some of which could be vastly more advanced and technologically superior to our own human society. Consider the timeline for a moment. The entire known universe has been active for approximately 13.8 billion years. In stark contrast, the planet Earth has only existed for about 4.6 billion years. This vast temporal gap means that highly advanced alien civilizations could have easily risen to incredible heights, built planet-spanning empires, and collapsed into total extinction over the course of billions of years before the dust cloud that formed our Earth had even begun to solidify in space, while the sudden realization that our galaxy is literally teeming with Earth-like worlds has set off a massive revolution within mainstream academic institutions. As far as ancient astronaut theorists are concerned, this mountain of new data simply validates and confirms the exact concepts they have been trying to communicate all along. The ongoing discoveries of exoplanets that have occurred over the last few years have been nothing short of extraordinary. I can vividly recall the exact moment when astronomers successfully confirmed the presence of the very first exoplanet, and back then, my close colleagues and I looked at the data and said to each other that this single discovery would merely be the opening act for thousands more to follow. Flash forward to our current day, and we are witnessing as many as 3 entirely new exoplanets being logged into our databases on a daily basis. Therefore, the core argument that we have championed from the beginning, that our planet Earth is not a unique, one-of-a-kind anomaly inside this colossal universe, has been proven completely correct by modern science. This verification immediately brings back the vital question that we have been raising for decades: the undeniable fact that for thousands of years, our historical record has preserved striking evidence of some form of physical visitation from highly advanced foreign civilizations. We can only hope that as our mainstream sciences continue to refine these space telescopes to scan exoplanets, they will eventually allow us to successfully locate the precise coordinates of the actual home worlds, where these ancient alien travellers originated before they began visiting our planet. It is highly probable that the vast majority of those planets sitting safely inside the Goldilocks zone are home to biological life forms that are fundamentally similar to our own. The ultimate mystery that remains is quite simple. Were they the ones who travelled across the void to interface with us thousands of years ago? However, while an ever-increasing number of traditional scientists are now willing to admit that the existence of intelligent life is theoretically possible within the boundaries of the Milky Way, they simultaneously argue that the sheer physical distances separating those planets from Earth are simply too unimaginably vast for any actual physical interstellar travel to ever occur. This skeptical scientific viewpoint places them in a direct, unyielding conflict with alternative researchers who confidently state that the foundational secrets to mastering rapid extraterrestrial space travel are already hidden inside Albert Einstein's famous theory of relativity. They believe that a journey across the stars to a highly distant world does not have to drag on for multiple centuries, but could actually be achieved in a matter of seconds. Let us shift our focus to the Atacama Desert, located in the nation of Chile, during the month of August in the year 2016. Standing at the high-altitude La Silla Observatory, a team of astronomers who had been methodically scanning the sky for nearby exoplanets made a massive global announcement. They had successfully detected a rock-based Earth-like planet operating in a stable orbit around the absolute closest neighbouring star to our own solar system, Proxima Centauri. They officially designated this newly found world as Proxima b, and they described its environment as being highly comparable to Earth and positioned close enough to its parent star to easily host liquid water and maintain life. One of the most profoundly exciting exoplanets that we have managed to track down in recent times is without a doubt Proxima b. This nearby world calculates out to be roughly 1.3 times the total mass of the Earth. Because of these specific dimensions, space scientists believe that it possesses a solid, rocky terrain, which strongly indicates that its physical surface features could be remarkably identical to our own planet. There is a very real chance that Proxima b is fully habitable for human life. We are rapidly developing the ability to analyse its environmental traits in magnificent detail using next-generation terrestrial telescopes. And within the next 10 years, we might even possess the technology to capture actual direct photographic images of the planet's surface. When you map out its position, Proxima b is situated just over 4 light-years away from our home world, which translates to a physical distance of approximately 25 trillion miles. Despite that absolutely staggering physical separation, a highly ambitious, well-funded engineering project is already actively underway to design and launch an uncrewed spacecraft to study the world up close. This historic space initiative is known as Breakthrough Starshot. The entire project originally materialised as the shared vision of visionary billionaire philanthropist Yuri Milner and the internationally renowned cosmologist, the late Stephen Hawking. For the absolute first time in the entire narrative of the human species, we are no longer limited to simply standing on the ground and staring up at the stars. We are finally on the verge of actually travelling to them. The primary engineering objective of the Breakthrough Starshot program is to deploy a fleet of microscopic space probes that are only a few centimetres wide across their entire structure. The operational plan is to take a miniature computer microchip, attach it to an ultra-lightweight sail structure, and energise that sail using an array of incredibly powerful ground-based laser beams. The intense energy from the laser array pushes against the sail, rapidly accelerating the tiny computer chip and launching it directly toward the nearest star system. Once you successfully launch these probes into the void, they require no internal fuel and basically just cruise through deep space at an unyielding velocity. Through this laser propulsion method, it is entirely possible to accelerate these tiny chips to a phenomenal speed of roughly 20% the speed of light. Travelling at that level of velocity, the timeline required to cross the immense distance to our nearest neighbouring star suddenly becomes incredibly reasonable and achievable within a single human generation. However, even when moving through the void at such mind-boggling velocities, these miniature robotic probes will still require a full 20 years of continuous travel to finally complete their journey and arrive at their target destination. This wait time exists because light itself moves at a strictly finite speed. To understand this reality with a very straightforward example, consider the fact that the Sun is positioned roughly 8 light minutes away from us, meaning the light we see right now took 8 minutes to travel through space. The vast majority of cosmic entities in our galaxy are located thousands or even millions of light years away from our position. If our global monitoring systems happen to intercept an intentional signal being broadcast by an intelligent alien civilization, that event would undeniably be a massive milestone for humanity, but the source would still be profoundly isolated. Because of the terrifying, immense scale of interstellar distances, those entities might never possess the physical capability to travel to our world, and we might never actually meet them face to face. Yet if you look at this dilemma, through the lens of ancient astronaut theories, which assert that Earth has been actively visited by alien beings originating from far-off exoplanets that we are only just now discovering, those travellers would have had to possess a method to bypass the primary constraint of space travel, the crushing, vast physical separation between cosmic objects. If you sit down and converse with traditional aerospace scientists, they will repeat the exact same objection like a broken record, maintaining that the physical distance separating individual star systems is simply too immense to allow for physical alien visitations. However, if you look at the research emerging in recent years, a steadily expanding group of forward-thinking astrophysicists have brought forward the idea that humanity's ultimate breakthrough in unlocking the secrets of rapid interstellar space travel might actually be much closer to reality than anyone previously believed. They are convinced that the absolute key to conquering the galaxy relies on utilising a theoretically viable cosmic shortcut known to science as a wormhole. This concept describes a profound bending of the fabric of space-time that was originally brought to light by Albert Einstein, which could theoretically shrink the travel time required to cross between distant stars from long, grueling centuries down to a matter of mere seconds or instantaneous transit. When you examine this from the perspective of mastering ultimate space travel, my personal viewpoint is that wormholes are actually quite simple to conceptualize if you understand that space itself can be bent and warped according to our modern theory of general relativity, which serves as our current model for gravity. Imagine taking the fabric of space and folding it completely back onto itself so that you have two entirely separate spatial layers positioned directly parallel to each other, and you then bridge those 2 points with a continuous localized tunnel. That connective tunnel is precisely what constitutes a wormhole. In popular culture and alternative science circles, these structures are frequently referred to as stargates because they provide an engineered method to achieve faster than light transit across vast cosmic expanses. In theory, any advanced spacecraft engineered with the capability to generate or stabilize a localized wormhole would be able to travel to highly distant exoplanets in a matter of hours, or perhaps even a few seconds. If far-off extraterrestrial societies that are millions of years more advanced than human beings are operating out there in the dark, is it not entirely possible that they unlocked these deep secrets of cosmic transit hundreds or thousands of years ago? If they did master those physics, could they have used that knowledge to travel directly across the universe to interface with planet Earth? Let us look at another historical event that unfolded at Mount Palomar, located in the state of California, on the date of October the 6th, 2013. An unimaginably massive red star situated inside the Pegasus constellation, which measured out to be a full 10 times larger than our own Sun, reached the end of its life cycle and detonated in a colossal supernova explosion. For the absolute first time in our history, modern space scientists possess the precise tracking instruments necessary to witness the violent death of a giant star unfolding in absolute real time. However, there is an even more profound philosophical reality to consider regarding this observation, because that dying star is located at a distance of 160 million light years away from Earth. The astronomers who watched the explosion were actually witnessing an event that took place 160 million years in the past. One of the most critical concepts to understand regarding the science of astronomy is that practically everything we are looking at in the night sky has already happened in the past, because starlight requires a finite amount of time to cross the cosmic gulfs to reach our eyes. A supernova is essentially the ultimate violent destruction of a star, and if that star happened to host any orbiting planets, those worlds were completely vaporized and wiped out instantly by the blast. Therefore, if a highly advanced civilization or any form of biological life was present in that star system, what we are observing right now in our modern laboratories actually occurred a vast distance back in time. The violent cosmic destruction observed in the constellation Pegasus gives us a dramatic and undeniable verification that our universe is both exceptionally ancient and incredibly dynamic. However, ancient astronaut theorists strongly believe that these cataclysmic events also highlight the exact reasons why a highly advanced extraterrestrial society would be forced to permanently abandon its native homeworld in a desperate search for alternative planets to colonize. When modern astronomers scan the deep layers of the galaxy and map out these dying stars, we have to realize that if an intelligent population had built a thriving society around that collapsing sun, their only path to survival would require a massive migration to an entirely different solar system, targeting a stable planet that they could safely settle. It is highly possible that these entities executed that exact survival strategy and ultimately established a new home on our planet. In fact, we are fully aware that billions of years from now, our own sun will inevitably exhaust its nuclear fuel and go supernova, and humanity is already moving incredibly close to possessing the spacefaring technology required to venture out into the dark, to relocate to an alternative habitable planet. We can easily apply that exact same survival logic to prehistoric cosmic civilizations as well, picturing ancient star-spanning societies who realized that their parent star was on the verge of total collapse, prompting them to initiate a highly organized long-term plan of planetary migration across the galaxy. Could it be that the grand narrative of the cosmos has been, in large part, a continuous story of interstellar migration executed by various advanced exoplanet civilizations? As far as alternative researchers are concerned, the answer to that question is a definitive and absolute yes. They confidently state that the concrete proof supporting this concept is waiting to be uncovered by methodically evaluating everything from ancient stone carvings to the foundational religious text preserved by early human cultures all across the globe. Let us return our focus to the La Silla Observatory in Chile during the year 2011. Space researchers made a massive announcement, verifying the discovery of an exceptionally large Earth-like planet orbiting a stable star located inside the constellation of Orion. This newly found world is situated perfectly inside the star's habitable Goldilocks parameters, and the host star itself shares a remarkable structural similarity to our own Sun, making it an absolute prime candidate for hosting intelligent alien life. This specific discovery is incredibly monumental because our ultimate goal is to pinpoint a stable, calm solar system that mirrors the exact safety of the planet Earth. As far as ancient astronaut theorists are concerned, this specific discovery might actually represent the single most compelling and significant exoplanet verification ever logged by modern science. This is because all across our globe, countless unconnected ancient societies have preserved vivid, matching mythologies detailing otherworldly sky travellers who travelled down to Earth from the Orion constellation. Furthermore, these early peoples went to extraordinary lengths to construct their most sacred and massive stone monuments in precise geometric alignment with those exact stars. No matter where you travel on Earth, you will encounter these colossal prehistoric stone structures that were systematically built to replicate the layout of Orion. The absolute primary example that immediately surfaces in the mind is the magnificent Great Pyramid complex situated on the Giza Plateau in Egypt, where the spatial positioning of the three main pyramids perfectly mirrors the exact alignment of the three belt stars of Orion. However, if you cross the ocean to the American Southwest, you will locate alternative ancient structures that were built with that exact same celestial reference to Orion. The sacred oral histories of the native tribes talk specifically about ancient teachers who travelled down to Earth from the Orion star system. The undeniable fact that the geometric signature of Orion's constellation is permanently engraved into the most spectacular archaeological monuments on our planet proves that someone, at some point in our history, explicitly instructed our early ancestors on exactly where and how to construct these massive monuments to serve as a permanent map, illustrating where those sky teachers originated. Is it truly within the realm of real possibility that the foreign world identified inside the constellation of Orion is the exact same cosmic location where the otherworldly entities who visited Earth travelled from thousands of years in our past? For individuals who dedicate their lives to studying the ancient astronaut theory, such a bold and daring concept is viewed as a highly valid and concrete possibility. Furthermore, these alternative researchers firmly insist that the star system of Orion is by no means the only celestial region from which these ancient cosmic travellers might have originated. If you look across the entire face of our planet, you will find a vast array of completely different human cultures that each independently point to highly specific star systems as the true birthplace of their civilization. For example, the ancestral Quechua people who live in the high mountains of Peru hold a deep foundational belief that their true origins are directly linked to the Pleiades cluster. Meanwhile, if you travel to the continent of Africa, you will encounter the historic Dogon tribe, who have spent centuries openly stating that the true beginning of their lineage is fundamentally connected to the distant Sirius star system. A highly diverse number of early human societies have collectively envisioned that their ancestors descended from very specific points in the night sky, frequently naming the Pleiades or the star Sirius. Within a rational framework, this suggests that even within the realm of ancient mythology, there has always been an understanding that planets must exist near those specific stars that are fully capable of being lived on by intelligent entities who look remarkably similar to ourselves. While a great number of these prehistoric human societies pointed their fingers toward incredibly distant, far-off stellar configurations as the native home worlds of their sky gods, alternative researchers bring forward an even more fascinating suggestion. They point out that one of the absolute oldest verified civilizations in human history, the ancient Sumerians, left behind meticulous clay records describing otherworldly entities who travelled to Earth from a planet situated right inside our very own domestic solar system. This specific celestial body is a hidden planet that, until a very short time ago in modern history, was completely assumed by traditional mainstream astronomers to be non-existent. Let us look at a historical milestone that took place in New York City during the year 1976. An independent scholar and researcher named Zecharia Sitchin published a highly controversial and landmark book titled The 12th Planet, which served as the first entry in a series of more than 12 volumes entirely centered around Sitchin's personal translations of ancient Sumerian cuneiform writings. This specific book eventually succeeded in completely reshaping the fundamental perspective that millions of people held regarding the historical timeline of life on Earth. Within the pages of this text, Sitchin put forward the radical claim that the prehistoric Sumerians actively documented the physical presence of an intelligent extraterrestrial race that once established a massive operation on our planet, a race they officially labelled as the Anunnaki. When you analyse the language, the specific title of Anunnaki functions essentially as an exact interchangeable synonym for the word extraterrestrial, because the actual linguistic translation of the word Anunnaki directly means those specific individuals who descended down to Earth from the heavens. The ancient cuneiform records outline a massive, complex hierarchy consisting of an entire pantheon of these Anunnaki entities. At the absolute top of this power structure sat a supreme leader named Anu, who functioned fundamentally as the ultimate sovereign king over all the operating Anunnaki forces, and he ruled alongside his two highly prominent sons, who were named Enlil and Enki. When we carefully investigate a large majority of the surviving Sumerian clay tablets, these sky beings appear to have travelled to our world from an exceptionally large planetary body that generated a distinct reddish glowing aura in space. One of the absolute greatest unresolved mysteries surrounding the narrative of the Anunnaki is identifying the exact cosmic coordinates of where they came from. To resolve this question, Zecharia Sitchin dug deeply into the prehistoric records and systematically constructed a comprehensive model suggesting that these Anunnaki travellers originated from an as-of-yet undetected 12th planet hidden within our local solar system, a world he officially named Nibiru. The planet Nibiru is described across the ancient texts as being vastly larger in total scale than our planet Earth. Furthermore, it travels along an exceptionally elongated, egg-shaped elliptical orbit around our Sun. The truly fascinating catch regarding this orbital path is that it requires a full 3,600 years to complete a single revolution around the Sun. Because of this massive loop, a single solar year for the inhabitants of that world is equivalent to a staggering 3,600 of our human years on Earth. Zecharia Sitchin firmly believed that during a specific phase of this 3,600-year orbital journey, the path of Nibiru would bring it into a position that was relatively close to the planet Earth. Sitchin then theorized that the Anunnaki would systematically capitalize on this close alignment by launching their rocket ships across the short void to touch down on Earth, and this periodic convergence was the primary method they used to actively interface and interact with the human population. For many consecutive decades, conventional mainstream astronomers rigidly argued that it was completely impossible for any such massive planet to exist or operate within the boundaries of our solar system. However, in the year 2016, two highly respected Caltech astronomers named Konstantin Batygin and Mike Brown made a startling calculation that could potentially prove the skeptical academic community entirely wrong. Batygin and Brown were utilising a highly innovative and fascinating mathematical method to hunt for hidden planets operating inside our solar system. Specifically, they were closely tracking the exact movements of distant dwarf planets and highly isolated Kuiper belt objects situated far beyond the orbit of Neptune. The core principle of this research is that if these frozen, distant objects display any form of irregular or strange gravitational behaviour, astronomers can utilise those precise anomalies to mathematically calculate the presence of a massive, unseen planet. Through this method, they successfully isolated a massive theoretical planetary mass travelling along a highly elongated elliptical orbit around our Sun. For a long time, astronomers have frequently suspected that due to a series of distinct gravitational disruptions and unexplained orbital anomalies, there must be an additional undiscovered planet operating in the furthest frozen reaches of our solar system, positioned far out beyond the orbit of Pluto. Mainstream space scientists collectively refer to this mysterious theoretical world as Planet X, and the math suggests it could easily be an exceptionally large planet. Even though astronomers currently lack the visual instruments to see it directly with their eyes, I fully suspect that our tracking systems will eventually discover its exact coordinates and provide absolute proof that it exists. The precise calculations executed by Batygin and Brown estimate that this planet X travels along a highly stretched elliptical path that requires thousands of human years just to complete a single trip around our central sun. This calculation matches with absolute perfection the exact descriptions that Zecharia Sitchin extracted from his translations of the prehistoric Sumerian tablets regarding an additional planet operating inside our solar system. The critical realization to take away from this is that if our modern space agencies successfully confirm the physical presence of Planet X, we will simultaneously confirm the historical reality of the Anunnaki. The two concepts are completely intertwined with one another, meaning the physical verification of Planet X and the historical model of the Anunnaki will ultimately prove each other true. Is it truly possible that advanced extraterrestrial travellers made the journey to Earth from an operating planet located right inside our domestic solar system? Furthermore, if our planet has indeed served as a physical host for intelligent alien visitors originating from multiple, completely different worlds, what was the absolute primary motive that brought them here in the first place? If we look back at the historical testimony preserved on the ancient Sumerian clay tablets, the Anunnaki valued a single natural resource above every other commodity in existence, and that resource was gold. Let us shift our focus to Los Angeles, California, during the month of June in the year 2019. A commercial aerospace enterprise known as the TransAstra Corporation made a public announcement regarding a specialized partnership with NASA to develop a highly innovative industry in outer space, the commercial mining of asteroids. Our leadership team officially incorporated TransAstra in the year 2015 because we clearly observed that massive private companies like SpaceX under Elon Musk, alongside Blue Origin founded by Jeff Bezos, were successfully engineering low-cost, exceptionally reliable booster systems capable of delivering payloads into orbit at a fraction of historical costs. Once a society possesses affordable rocket systems that can access orbit routinely and inexpensively, it becomes entirely logical to begin constructing actual heavy industries directly in outer space. Without a doubt, one of the absolute first commercial industries that will manifest in this new era is the mining of asteroids. The heavy precious metals that human society values so intensely on Earth, such as gold and platinum, are categorized as precious metals precisely because they are exceptionally rare within our planet's crust. The vital question we must ask is, where are these metals located in massive quantities? And the definitive answer is inside the asteroid belt. Essential metals like gold, copper and zinc have been aggressively extracted from the ground by human civilizations for thousands of years, and they serve as the absolute foundation for advanced technology and complex societies. However, the total supply of these materials buried inside the Earth is strictly limited, in large part because these heavy elements are not naturally native to our planet. During the ancient historical epoch, when the Earth was originally coalescing and forming in space, the entire body of the planet existed in a completely molten liquid state. Because of this intense fluid process, the vast majority of the heavy precious metals were gravitationally pulled directly toward the absolute centre of the Earth. This molten sorting process resulted in all the dense elements sinking deep down into the planet's core, completely sealing them away in a location where humans can never access them. Eventually, as time advanced, the outer surface of the Earth began to cool down, forming a hardened outer crust comprised almost entirely of much lighter silicate materials. It is widely accepted across academic institutions that without direct access to heavy metals, the development of advanced human technology and modern civilization would have been completely impossible. Fortunately for the survival of the human race, approximately 3.8 billion years ago, a massive cosmic event occurred. It is carefully estimated that trillions of space asteroids aggressively bombarded the Earth, depositing a rich, fresh layer of dense heavy metals directly into the planet's newly hardened outer crust. these vital elements were absolutely not part of the Earth's original composition. Every single ounce of these precious metals arrived on Earth via comets and heavy space rocks that smashed into our planet early in its cosmic development. Therefore, all the precious metals that we extract from mines across the Earth today originated entirely from outer space asteroids. This intense prehistoric asteroid bombardment systematically seeded the Earth's surface with an abundance of minerals that ultimately made possible the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, and our modern global technological infrastructure. However, in our current era, a massive problem is unfolding. Many of these essential metals, including the rare earth elements that are absolutely required to manufacture high-tech electronics, are entering a phase of extreme shortage. Because of this looming resource crisis, a large percentage of aerospace experts firmly believe that the asteroid belt must once again come to the rescue of civilization. If you isolate a single standard asteroid measuring just a few hundred meters in total diameter, that single space rock will contain a higher concentration of rare earth elements than has been successfully extracted by humanity across our entire collective history on Earth. Out of the more than 6,000 individual asteroids currently catalogued inside NASA's tracking database, it is carefully estimated that mining just the 10 absolute easiest targets to reach would yield a mind-boggling $1.5 trillion in pure mineral resources. The raw materials waiting in the asteroid belt possess the capacity to fully sustain all the operational needs of human civilization for multiple centuries, or perhaps thousands of years into our future. Therefore, the most natural and logical next step for our species is to construct specialized spacecraft engineered to travel out to these asteroids, extract their minerals, and manufacture goods directly in space. We can safely assume that any alternative intelligent entities operating in the universe, if they exist, would process logic in the exact same way that we do. Consequently, any resource strategy that appears completely rational to human engineers would appear equally rational to an alien civilization. If these advanced alien societies exist on nearby exoplanets, is it not highly probable that they are fully aware of the unimaginable wealth of resources waiting inside our asteroid belt, and also right here on the planet Earth? Alternative researchers strongly state that the answer is yes, and they suggest that Earth is exceptionally rich in another highly valuable commodity that would be of immense worth to an advanced civilization running a massive mining operation: liquid water. If an advanced alien race wanted to systematically extract resources from the asteroid belt, they would absolutely require a localized base of operations, a stable environment where they could regroup their forces and refuel their ships. As it happens, there is a perfect planetary body located right next to the asteroid belt, and it is called planet Earth. What is the absolute primary reason that would compel alien travellers to target our world? It could easily be driven by the fact that the surface of the Earth is comprised almost entirely of liquid water. They would utilise our planet as a vital rest stop because they possess the technology to easily split water molecules apart, isolating the hydrogen and oxygen to manufacture high-energy rocket fuel. Therefore, if you possess an advanced spacecraft engineered to utilise hydrogen-based propulsion, our oceans provide you with an absolute endless supply of all the fuel you could ever possibly require. It is highly probable that our world has functioned fundamentally as a cosmic way station for extraterrestrial travellers for millions of years. Is it within the realm of true reality that alien civilizations travelled to Earth not simply as explorers, but as cosmic refugees fleeing from planets circling around dying stars, or to extract precious heavy metals and secure an abundance of natural resources like water? Furthermore, if that is the case, would it indicate that these ancient visitors might share a physical blueprint that is remarkably identical to our own biology, let us return to the La Silla Observatory in Chile during the year 2009. Space scientists successfully identified a highly promising, potentially habitable planet operating around a star catalogued as Gliese 677c. This world is a massive rock-based planet positioned firmly inside the central boundaries of the habitable Goldilocks zone. Even though concrete proof of active biological life has yet to be verified on its surface, astronomers possess the data necessary to accurately speculate on exactly how organisms would evolve within that specific environment. When we attempt to visualize life developing on a foreign planet, we must recognize that the specific environmental forces of that world will strictly dictate exactly what a living creature will look like. When analysing planets that are significantly larger than the Earth, the increased planetary mass creates a drastically more intense gravitational pull, which would likely force complex life forms to evolve with much shorter, more compressed body structures. This compressed physical architecture creates a highly stable biological frame and offers excellent protection against severe injuries resulting from accidental falls. Therefore, complex organisms developing on high-mass planets would naturally be significantly shorter than creatures evolving on smaller worlds with lower gravity. Just like on Earth, the absolute primary evolutionary force shaping life on that world is the specific intensity of its parent star. The star Gliese 667c is categorized as a red dwarf, an M-class star that generates a light output that is a mere 1.4% as bright as our Sun. Because these M-dwarf stars are drastically smaller than our Sun, they operate at much cooler temperatures and radiate a vastly lower volume of visible light. Because the host star provides such a dim, low-light environment compared to our own solar system, any complex life forms evolving on those planets would look entirely different from human beings. Let us assume, for the sake of scientific debate, that life is actively thriving on Gliese 667. The organisms living there would exist in a state of near permanent eternal darkness. In order for a complex life form to successfully navigate a dim environment like that, their visual organs would need to mirror the biology of owls on Earth. They would naturally evolve exceptionally massive, wide eyes designed to capture every single available photon of faint light. They would likely develop visual organs that operate similarly to insect eyes, engineered to perceive completely different spectrums of light and track subtle heat signatures in the dark. This would result in a visual system completely alien to the way humans perceive reality. For alternative researchers, these exact evolutionary descriptions share a truly stunning and curious similarity to the highly consistent testimonies brought forward by thousands of independent alien abductees. Individuals who claim to have experienced alien abductions provide remarkably uniform accounts regarding the exact physical traits of the entities they observed. The absolute most consistent description across global reports outlines a 4-foot-tall entity with a greyish skin tone, a highly enlarged head, and exceptionally massive, completely black eyes. This physical blueprint aligns perfectly with exactly what evolutionary biologists would expect to see manifest on a high-gravity world where the crushing force makes it impossible to grow to a height of 6 feet. Is it within the boundaries of real possibility that the habitable world orbiting Gliese 667c is the actual native homeworld of the specific entities known throughout the global UFO community as the Greys? As far as alternative researchers are concerned, the planet circling Gliese 667c represents just one of a massive number of recently identified worlds that could easily serve as the explicit place of origin for extraterrestrials encountered both in our modern era and throughout the ancient past. Let us shift our focus to Mountain View, California, in the month of April of the year 2013, where NASA scientists operating at the Ames Research Center made a major announcement. Data from the Kepler Space Telescope successfully verified the presence of two entirely new exoplanets that appear exceptionally promising for hosting biological life. Worlds officially named Kepler 62 and Kepler 62f. These specific worlds are categorized by astronomers as genuine water worlds, planets that are completely encased by a global, all-encompassing ocean that covers every single square inch of their surface. The verification of Kepler 62e and f has generated immense excitement because these ocean-covered planets operate directly inside the habitable zone. When a planet is covered entirely by a global liquid ocean, it drastically increases the overall statistical probability that biological processes are actively unfolding on that world. If an advanced planet is comprised entirely of liquid water and possesses a stable atmosphere, any complex creatures that evolve within that environment would naturally be aquatic, waterborne organisms. They would absolutely not evolve to look like land-based human beings who walk upright on two legs and utilize two arms. Instead, their biological form might look remarkably similar to the mythological descriptions of mermaids. Alternative researchers point out that many of the oldest human civilizations across the globe have preserved highly detailed historical records describing advanced teachers descending from the sky who possess distinctly amphibious, fish-like physical characteristics. Revered by early populations as divine gods, the physical presence of these amphibious teachers was documented in ancient China, sub-Saharan Africa, Central America, and ancient Egypt, just to name a very few locations. These explicit historical accounts state that these amphibious entities actively interacted with human populations during the daylight hours, and then systematically retreated back into the deep waters of local rivers or lakes once night fell. Is it truly possible that these entities originally travelled to Earth from global water worlds like Kepler 62 and F? Complex organisms matching that exact blueprint would naturally evolve on massive water worlds covered entirely by a deep global ocean. Furthermore, as our ongoing search for exoplanets accelerates, a massive number of these explicit ocean worlds are being verified across the galaxy. These ancient accounts of half-human, half-fish deities describe intelligent entities who share traits with us but are completely aquatic and originate from these verified water planets. It is highly probable that extraterrestrial travellers would be profoundly attracted to the planet Earth precisely because our world features massive, deep oceans. Consequently, advanced aquatic extraterrestrials could easily find an exceptionally comfortable and happy home here on Earth. Therefore, when we eventually interface with intelligent alien civilizations across deep space, should we expect them to look exactly like us? Absolutely not. They could easily look completely different from human beings and have travelled down an entirely alternative biological pathway to achieve high intelligence. Through this ongoing search for habitable exoplanets, is it possible that mainstream space agencies are accidentally mapping out the exact home worlds of the extraterrestrial visitors who colonised Earth in our past? For alternative researchers, the definitive answer to that question is a resounding yes. They suggest that our entire understanding of cosmic life is on the verge of being completely revolutionised once again, as NASA prepares to deploy a spectacular new piece of observation technology into outer space. Let us look at an event that unfolded in Geneva, Switzerland on the date of October the 8th, 2019. Renowned astronomers Michel Mayor and Didier Queloz were officially awarded the prestigious Nobel Prize in Physics to honour their historic discovery of the very first verified exoplanet back in the year 1992. Throughout the years that have followed that initial breakthrough, More than 4,000 individual exoplanets have been successfully located, closely analysed and formally categorised by science, and entirely new worlds are being added to our global databases every single day. Let us execute a very simple science experiment tonight. Step outside your home, look up at the night sky and observe the thousands of glittering stars shining above you. Realise that on a strict statistical average, every single star you see features at least one planet circling around it. Furthermore, approximately 1 out of every 20 of those stars hosts a planet that matches the exact physical traits of Earth. Therefore, when you look up at the stars tonight, you must accept the reality that an intelligent entity could easily be standing on a far-off world, looking directly back across space at you. As the timeline moves forward, NASA will officially launch the highly anticipated James Webb Space Telescope, a revolutionary satellite engineered to achieve a milestone that was long dismissed as completely impossible. Capturing detailed direct colour imagery of a distant exoplanet, the James Webb Space Telescope represents an entirely different class of observation hardware than anything humanity has ever positioned in space before. It will grant us the specialised capability to isolate and analyse the faint reflected light coming off distant exoplanets, specifically within the infrared spectrum, allowing our laboratories to search for definitive chemical signatures indicating the active presence of biological processes. However, when our monitors finally display the direct visual images of these foreign worlds and the complex entities that inhabit them, what will we truly uncover? I am entirely convinced that what is currently waiting in store for the human race is absolute proof that these exoplanets are home to highly advanced intelligent civilizations that possess the physical capability to travel directly into our solar system. This monumental verification will ignite an absolute sea change across the globe, completely transforming our established scientific communities and profoundly impacting our global religious institutions as well. If astronomers successfully verify exoplanets hosting highly intelligent alien life forms, will those creatures appear strangely familiar to us? Will we discover active populations of amphibious humanoid entities that match the exact descriptions carved into stone by our early ancestors? Will we see the small grey entities with massive black eyes that have been reported so consistently by abductees? Furthermore, is it within the realm of real possibility that some of these visitors, originating from planets that are identical twins to Earth, look completely and remarkably identical to modern human beings? Within the core framework of established ancient astronaut theory, it is widely understood that these advanced extraterrestrial beings, travelling from outside our solar system, were actively interfacing with early human society. They were deliberately manipulating our genetic code, effectively creating the modern human population on this planet to mirror their own physical appearance and biological structure. As our instruments discover a higher volume of exoplanets, the ultimate implications for human history are absolutely colossal. I believe it is highly probable that we are standing directly on the verge of locating our true home planet, the explicit cosmic location of our genetic origin. The ultimate mind-blowing revelation will not be discovering whether they look like us, but realizing that we look exactly like them because we are their literal biological offspring. As our professional scientists aggressively push forward with their ongoing technological searches to isolate and catalogue habitable alien worlds scattered across the cosmos, are we truly standing directly on the absolute edge of a monumental discovery? Are we about to uncover not merely simple primitive alien organisms drifting in space, but the precise historical extraterrestrial travellers who intentionally voyaged across the void to establish a physical presence on Earth many long centuries ago? Furthermore, Will our global society ultimately look at the empirical data and discover that the bizarre, strange gods meticulously depicted by our earliest ancestors as mere creative, mythological inventions were actually very real? Will we find out that they were completely physical, flesh and blood entities who operated with biological realities that were not so radically different from our very own human bodies? Perhaps one day in the very near future, our space agencies will carefully look upon a high-definition satellite image of a highly distant, far-off exoplanet and see something completely life-altering. We might see not only a viable target that will serve as the future colonial home for the human race, but a world that could have once been actively lived on by our very own ancient alien ancestors. Right now, in our current generation, a highly competitive global race has officially begun to find an engineered path to migrate off this home planet. When you strip away the minor details, you discover that this is precisely what the entire collective narrative of human history has been leading up to all along. Our species has officially arrived at this exact, monumental present moment, where we must prepare to migrate directly out into the deep expanses of space. This represents a highly unique, specialised 2-hour Ancient Aliens presentation event. This grand historical movement is completely and directly about the human race systematically setting up a permanent, sustainable colonial outpost on another operating planet. When you evaluate our current situation, the choices available to our species are stark and absolute. Either we aggressively prepare ourselves to permanently leave the planet Earth behind, or we must prepare ourselves to stay here and face ultimate biological extinction. When human astronauts eventually complete these massive voyages and officially become the foreign alien visitors arriving on other far-off planets, what specific kinds of environments or whom among intelligent entities will they actually encounter out there in the dark? What will happen if our colony ships finally arrive on the surface of Mars and our ground teams discover the undeniable presence of highly advanced artificial structures built into the landscape? The reality is that intelligent alien life is actively operating across the universe, and our highest levels of government are fully aware of this truth in exceptional detail. This massive collection of classified information absolutely must be broken out into the public eye if our species is ever going to successfully move beyond the boundaries of Earth. We must embrace this hidden knowledge as a brand new generation of elite astronauts actively prepares to establish life on entirely other worlds. Are today's space pioneers simply paving a new path toward mankind's ultimate future destination? Or are we unknowingly executing a grand historical return to our true extraterrestrial past? I am completely convinced that we are moving exceptionally close to a massive public revelation where our global society is going to finally understand that every single concept that ancient astronaut theorists have been talking about from the beginning is completely and totally true. Let us shift our narrative focus to the Mojave Desert, located in the state of California, on the specific date of May 29th, 2018. On this historic day, the visionary engineers of Virgin Galactic prepare for a monumental aerospace milestone as their cutting-edge vehicle, Spaceship 2 Unity, lifts off into the sky from the runway of the Mojave Air and Spaceport. The advanced spacecraft is carried high into the upper atmosphere under the solid power of a massive, specialized twin fuselage carrier jet plane, officially named the VMS Eve. The flight crew coordinates the launch sequence, counting down precisely 3, 2, 1, followed by the clean release of the vehicle. At an extreme altitude of 50,000 feet directly above the surface of the Earth, the Unity spacecraft is cleanly dropped away from its primary mothership, ignites its rocket engines, and surges aggressively upward through the sky until it successfully achieves a phenomenal maximum altitude of 144,500 feet before executing its re-entry manoeuvres and descending back down to touch down on Earth. The spectacular Unity aerospace system exists entirely as the personal brainchild of the world-famous billionaire entrepreneur Richard Branson. The operational deployment of this vehicle represents the dawn of a completely new era in global space exploration, because this machine was systematically designed and engineered to carry into space not only elite, highly trained government astronauts, but everyday civilian passengers. Right now, in our current era, we are living through an absolutely amazing time to actively watch what is unfolding across the landscape of global space exploration. We are witnessing the rise of massive commercial entities that are independently funding and constructing highly advanced booster rockets that our species is actively utilizing to ferry supplies to the International Space Station and potentially to ferry human beings to the surface of Mars in the exceptionally near future. We have top-tier aerospace visionaries who are openly discussing concrete strategies for establishing permanent, self-sustaining colonies on the surface of our moon and across the red sands of Mars. Furthermore, our modern leadership teams are now actively organising and deploying an entirely new branch of the military known as a Space Force, which functions in a manner that is remarkably identical to the historic science fiction stories that people used to listen to in the old days, such as the Starfleet Academy operating within the Star Trek universe, and other highly creative futuristic tales. As we look forward across just a few short generations into our future, our society is highly likely to witness the birth of a brand new population of human beings who are born as native Martians. Within a very short timeline, we ourselves will officially become the Martians. Therefore, we have truly reached a monumental crossroad in history, where the boundary of space is sitting right there in front of us, fully ripe for our species to reach out and confidently grab. In our modern time, a brand new 21st century space race has successfully captured the collective imagination of the entire human race. Not since the historic period of the legendary Apollo space program, which captured the hearts of millions with its history-making manned moon landings, has there been such a massive surge of global interest, collective hope, and dedicated funding focused on a return to manned space, missions to deeply explore alternative locations within our domestic solar system. Although at this present moment only the nations of the United States, Russia and China possess the fully verified independent engineering capabilities to launch human beings into space, dozens of alternative nations operating alongside exceptionally well-funded private corporations are aggressively committing unprecedented financial resources to gain entry into this highly exclusive club. I am fully old enough to personally remember watching the grainy television footage of that historic first small step that Neil Armstrong took onto the lunar surface. At that exact moment in our history, I think every single person watching collectively believed that his footprint was merely the opening step on a magnificent stairway that would lead humanity directly to the stars. We sat in awe as his voice travelled across the void, broadcasting the immortal words that it was one small step for a man, but one giant leap for all of mankind. However, after a few short years passed by, the immense momentum of that space race seemed to completely stall out. The general population appeared to lose all interest, and the funding withered away. Fortunately, what we are actively witnessing in recent years is an intense resurgence driven by other powerful nations entering the arena, particularly the rising space programs of China and also India, which brings back the concrete prospect that our species will finally blaze a permanent new trail to the stars. We have officially entered the second golden age of global space exploration. Even the elite tech billionaires of Silicon Valley are aggressively jumping directly into the game, independently funding their own private fleets of massive booster rockets. The ground crews announce that the test satellite is fully prepped and ready for immediate launch. Elon Musk successfully executed the historic launch of the massive Falcon Heavy rocket from the pad at Cape Canaveral. Millions of people all over the planet watched the launch unfold online in real time. Why did this specific event command such massive global attention? It was because that vehicle represented a true moon rocket. For the first time in more than 50 long years, a massive rocket system, fully capable of delivering human astronauts to the surface of the moon, successfully took off from the coast of Cape Canaveral. Furthermore, Jeff Bezos, who ranks as one of the absolute wealthiest individuals on our planet, has independently funded his own massive private spaceport hidden in the state of Texas, operating alongside an entire fleet of advanced rockets, one of which we highly suspect was explicitly engineered to travel to the moon. The engines ignite and the rocket lifts off into the sky. Many elite aerospace experts have brought forward the suggestion that global space exploration slowed down so drastically after the initial Apollo lunar missions, primarily because the staggering financial costs were simply too immense for governments to justify sustaining. Therefore, we must ask what is truly driving human society to once again undertake such an exceptionally expensive and grueling endeavour? The answer relies on an unyielding law of nature, which rigidly states that all living organisms must either leave their environment, adapt to new realities, or permanently perish. When you look at the empirical data of biology, a staggering 99.9% of every single living form that has ever manifested on the surface of the Earth has ultimately gone completely extinct. Extinction is the absolute norm for life on this planet. If you doubt the validity of that statement, you can easily verify it by simply drilling a deep hole right under your feet until your instruments strike the fossilized bones of the worlds that came before us. Therefore, executing a strategy to back up our global biosphere, so to speak, by backing up the human species into a multitude of completely different physical locations across the solar system, makes an immense amount of logical sense. One of the absolute favourite historical quotes that I love to reflect upon comes directly from Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, who is widely revered as one of the brilliant Russian founding fathers of the entire global space movement. He famously noted that humanity was originally born in the cradle of the earth, but a child cannot remain living inside its cradle forever. I am completely convinced that this exodus is an absolute inevitability for our species. As human beings, we possess a deep, unyielding love for exploration. Our ancestral lineage originally started in the wild savannas of Africa and systematically moved outward until we had populated the entire planet. And that aggressive expansion is precisely what transformed us into an exceptionally robust and resilient species. Therefore, that exact evolutionary pattern will naturally continue as we prepare to move our population off the planet entirely. When you analyse our behaviour, it becomes highly apparent that there is a distinct genetic survival mechanism built directly into our biological code, which dictates that we must continuously explore and move our populations beyond the next geographic horizon. I believe that drive is permanently hardwired into our neurons. However, for human beings to successfully thrive on foreign alien worlds, our scientists must first engineer methods to overcome a series of profound technological hurdles, extreme physiological dangers, and even intense psychological challenges. Yet, beyond all of those systemic obstacles, our space colonists must also prepare to face a scenario that is vastly more daunting. What will happen if they execute these landings and find themselves face to face with other highly intelligent sentient beings? The traditional academic idea that intelligent life, or complex sentient consciousness is completely confined to the planet Earth is merely a highly arrogant, human-centred anthropocentric delusion that our global society must completely rid itself of immediately. Within our single Milky Way galaxy alone, modern calculations estimate that there are approximately 140 billion independent planetary systems that are structurally not too dissimilar from our own Earth and solar system setup. The deployment of the Kepler space satellite has successfully allowed our astronomers to compile a comprehensive census of the Milky Way galaxy. Because of this data, we now know with absolute statistical certainty that on an average baseline, every single star you see features a planet orbiting around it. Furthermore, we are fully aware that a specific fraction of those worlds, roughly 1 out of every 20, host Earth-like planets operating within stable orbits. In alternative terms, it means the planet Earth could easily possess a literal cosmic doppelganger. The Earth could easily have an identical twin floating somewhere out there in the depths of outer space. How many of these identical worlds are operating across the galaxy? The data says billions. There are literally billions of Earth-like planets scattered across the dark. Therefore, for humans to arrogantly assume that we are the only intelligent game in town is completely and utterly ridiculous. As far as ancient astronaut theorists are concerned, definitive structural evidence proving that other highly intelligent life operates across the universe has already been successfully located on every single corner of our globe. They hold a firm, unyielding conviction that Earth has been actively visited by highly intelligent alien beings for thousands of continuous years, and that this cosmic interface originally began during the historical timeline of the ancient Sumerian kings. Let us travel back in time to the archaeological site of Khorsabad, located in the nation of Iraq, on the specific date of March 23, 1843, while aggressively excavating the desert sands in a dedicated search for long-lost archaeological treasures. A group of local labourers, led by the prominent French scientist Paul-Émile Botta, unexpectedly came directly upon the massive ruins of a colossal Assyrian palace. Deep within the ancient walls of this monumental structure, they uncovered an absolute abundance of pristine Sumerian cuneiform inscriptions. When scholars successfully translated these complex symbols, the inscriptions told the descriptive story of what archaeologists universally recognise as the absolute oldest verified civilization on Earth, detailing a group of immensely powerful, otherworldly beings officially named the Anunnaki. The specific title of Anunnaki was the precise term utilised by the prehistoric Sumerians to describe their gods, but if you trace the word back to its absolute original form, it simply translated to the Sky People. The title explicitly meant those specific individuals who were fundamentally connected with the stars. The Anunnaki were universally revered by early humans as the absolute givers of civilization to mortal kind, and the ancient texts explicitly describe them as possessing strangely shining eyes, radiating a brilliant light, and carrying an undeniable otherworldly aura about their physical presence. Based upon a full 30 years of dedicated study focused on these Sumerian cuneiform tablets, in the year 1976, the prominent author and researcher Zecharia Sitchin published his landmark text titled The 12th Planet, in which he brought forward the concept that the Sumerian gods were actually physical refugees who had travelled to Earth from an entirely alternative world. According to Sitchin's literal interpretation of the clay tablets, these advanced alien visitors, the Anunnaki, were the explicit creators of the human race. When you evaluate the ancient records, it appears with absolute clarity that these advanced gods descended from the heavens and literally initiated a massive, long-term colonization project right here on Earth, intentionally creating the human population in their direct physical image and after their exact likeness. If you follow that model, it stands to perfect reason that they also infused our genetic code with the exact same deep desire to spread this colonization project far beyond the borders of Earth. If you look closely at what we have been doing across our modern space programs, you discover that it represents a literal blueprint of exactly what occurred on our planet a very long time ago with these extraterrestrial colonizers. We are currently walking down the exact same evolutionary path. We are beginning to understand that the Anunnaki gods, who were actually advanced extraterrestrials, could easily still be operating throughout the vast expanses of the universe. Consequently, as we finally begin to launch our own populations out into deep space, we might be on the direct verge of encountering the exact prime intelligence that originally established civilization on Earth and was actively working throughout this solar system millions of years ago. Are our modern astronauts simply repeating an ancient cosmic pattern, that of aggressively exploring the universe with a dedicated eye focused on future colonization? If that is the reality, what will ultimately become of the home planet that they leave behind? Perhaps further vital clues can be uncovered by taking a vastly closer look at our absolute most likely colonial destinations. Let us shift our focus to Houston, Texas, on the specific date of June 7th, 2017. Standing before a crowd at the Johnson Space Center, Vice President Mike Pence officially announces the selection of NASA's 2017 astronaut class. He looks at the new recruits and proudly proclaims that as American astronauts, you may yet be the elite individuals who return our nation to the surface of the moon. You may be the historic first human beings to travel across space to set foot on the planet Mars. You are going to have physical experiences that the rest of us can only dream of. Those of us who are destined to walk out our lives on terra firma. This elite group of 12 men and women were systematically chosen from a record-shattering pool of more than 18,300 individual applicants, a number that more than doubled the previous historical record of 8,000 applicants that was set 4 decades earlier in the year 1978. Today, the collective desire of the human race to travel into outer space has reached an all-time high. Establishing permanent human colonies off the face of the Earth is no longer viewed as a mere distant possibility, but has been elevated to an absolute priority for our species. The only major question that remains is quite simple. Where will our colony ships travel first? In the short-term timeline, our aerospace agencies are focusing on 3 basic primary locations. First, there is the immediate goal of going back to the moon. Second, there is the massive initiative centred around going to Mars. And third, there is the highly lucrative goal of venturing into free space. This third option involves travelling directly into the asteroid belt and systematically utilising raw asteroidal materials to construct massive, free-floating space colonies. You can easily look at all 3 of those distinct paths as highly viable options in our immediate future. I firmly and deeply believe that any biological species that remains confined to a single planet is fundamentally not destined to survive for long, and that we must successfully move our population out into the wider solar system if we want to ensure our long-term continuation. Early on in the ancient evolution of our solar system, climate scientists believed that Venus, Earth and Mars each possessed a significant and abundant volume of liquid water on their surfaces. However, they each evolved along drastically different paths. Venus unfortunately suffered a completely runaway greenhouse effect, causing all of its surface water to permanently evaporate into space. And today, its surface temperatures and atmospheric pressures are so extremely high that it represents a hellish environment that humans can absolutely never inhabit. When you realise that reality, you must ask, what is the absolute next logical step for human colonisation? the definitive answer is Mars, even though the red planet is significantly smaller in total scale than the Earth. It still preserves a large number of the core characteristics necessary to host our species, making it a spectacular baseline environment to start our colonial work. I think the absolute most common and dangerous misconception held by the general public regarding Mars is assuming that colonising its surface is going to be significantly easier than it actually will be in reality. Right now, the International Space Station operates in a stable orbit, positioned a mere 250 miles directly above our heads. In comparison, the Moon is situated roughly 250,000 miles away from us, which represents an increase by a factor of 1,000. However, a colonial voyage to the Red Planet will require our ships to travel across a terrifying expanse of space measuring at least 250 million miles away. This is absolutely not a simple, routine rocket trip. The legendary rocket engineer Wernher von Braun systematically constructed the massive Saturn V rocket to successfully deliver our astronauts to the Moon, and it required a full 3 days of continuous flight to cross that distance. In stark contrast, a voyage to the surface of Mars will require at least 240 days of continuous travel using our absolute best current technology, and that represents an exceptionally grueling and dangerous journey. While a manned mission to the Red Planet will undeniably be a long, grueling and highly perilous expedition, experts point out that Mars possesses many profound natural advantages for long-term human colonization. The severe temperature fluctuations on its surface are significantly less extreme than those experienced on the airless surface of the Moon, for example, and its gravitational pull is remarkably more Earth-like. People don't seem to be focused on terraforming the Moon because Mars is a little bit easier to work with. Mars already possesses its own domestic atmosphere, and there is a massive amount of open real estate waiting for us. I mean, when you look at the raw data, it becomes clear that this is something we can actually achieve. For thousands of consecutive years, the planet Mars has held a powerful, near-total obsession over the human imagination, long before early astronomers even possessed the data to verify that it was a planet. It was distinctly separated from all alternative stars in the night sky by its deep, unmistakable amber coloration. Because of this fiery look, the ancient Babylonians officially referred to Mars as Nergal, revering him as a great hero and a powerful god of war. Meanwhile, in ancient Greece, they referred to the red planet as Ares, their explicit god of war. The mythological entity of Mars, the god of war, aggression, and intense conflict, originally materialized in human culture directly from our observations of this highly visible red heavenly body. This historical pattern makes me wonder if our modern desire, our intense quest, and our deep yearning to explore and conquer Mars carries a highly aggressive or fiercely competitive element to it. It makes you wonder if the ancient archetype of the war, God Mars himself, is not somehow actively involved in driving this colonial project forward. The ancient Egyptians also maintained a highly specific and intense interest in the planet Mars. In fact, the magnificent city of Cairo was officially named in direct homage to Mars, as its original name, Al-Qahira, directly translates to the vanquisher or the conqueror. Furthermore, prominent archaeologists believe that the legendary Great Sphinx itself was originally painted in a vibrant red colour, perhaps as a sacred homage paid directly to the red planet. Over the course of multiple centuries, human storytellers have conceived a massive array of numerous and often humorous notions regarding what the planet Mars and its potential Martian inhabitants might actually look like up close. The red planet has served as the central subject for countless books, legendary motion pictures, and even massive modern video games. However, we must ask a highly profound question. What if some of the most creative depictions of our interplanetary neighbour do not originate from pure human imagination at all? What if these stories are actually surfacing directly from ancient human memory? The famous psychologist Carl Jung systematically theorized that the entire human race shared a profound collective unconscious. He described this phenomenon as a distinct form of genetic memory, or deeply inherited memory that is passed down through our lineage. For example, if our earliest ancestors perceived that lightning strikes were exceptionally dangerous, we might automatically inherit a deep biological fear of lightning without ever experiencing it ourselves. Therefore, it is entirely possible that in this exact same manner, our ancient cultural associations and deep familiarity with the planet Mars are actually hardwired directly within our genes, embedded permanently inside our neurons as a core part of our physical DNA. If our ancient ancestors experienced something profound, that data goes directly into our genome, entering our DNA code. This brings forward a mind-blowing possibility. What if the human race originally originated on the planet Mars, and we are simply answering an ancient genetic call to return home without even realizing it? Could there be a deep, profound connection that links modern humans to Mars that is permanently buried inside our subconscious mind? Ancient astronaut theorists say a resounding yes. A private organisation based out of the Netherlands, known globally across the internet as Mars One, shocks the world by announcing a highly ambitious international mission to establish a permanent, self-sustaining human settlement on the surface of the Red Planet. During the subsequent year, the organisational leadership begins actively processing and accepting formal applications from thousands of aspiring space colonists who are completely eager to secure a spot on a manned interstellar expedition tentatively scheduled to depart our planet in the year 2023. However, while the unprecedented opportunity to be counted among the historic first humans to walk on the soil of Mars is an incredibly exciting prospect, there is one highly specific aspect of this mission architecture that seems absolutely guaranteed to instantly terrify and turn away a massive percentage of potential applicants. The flight logs confirm that this expedition will be operated strictly as a one-way trip into the void. Nevertheless, despite the extreme and sobering reality of that condition, thousands of enthusiastic people from all over the planet eagerly submit their applications. By the absolute moment I first heard about the existence of the Mars One program, I had already spent years explicitly telling all of my close friends that I did not care what obstacles I had to overcome or what sacrifices it was going to take. I was completely determined to find a way to travel into outer space within my personal lifetime. When this specific opportunity manifested, it truly felt to me like an authentic calling, an absolute inescapable destiny waiting to be fulfilled. I frequently get asked by skeptical people if this dream is truly worth the absolute sacrifice of permanently abandoning everything I have ever known or loved on the planet Earth, including my family, my closest friends, the warmth of natural sunshine, the sound of falling rain, and the beauty of walking along the ocean beach. My answer to them is that to possess the unique opportunity to live out the first half of my personal timeline as a native Earthling, and then transition to spend the entire second half of my life operating as a pioneer Martian, represents a truly spectacular and historic way to dedicate your individual existence to the ultimate greater survival cause of all humanity. This moment marks a deeply critical, defining crossroad in the overall timeline of the human species. Therefore, I suppose the absolute biggest single factor that successfully draws people to the Mars One initiative, the precise detail that instantly hooks their collective attention, is the shocking fact that it is organised as a one-way mission. This project is not a temporary scientific exploration. it is thoroughly about the human race establishing a permanent, unyielding colonial outpost on an entirely alternative planetary body. That profound realization is exactly what drew my personal focus to the venture in the very first place. When you analyse the orbital mechanics, the planet Mars and the planet Earth must be positioned in a very precise, synchronous alignment in space to allow our chemical spacecraft to execute the absolute shortest possible transit journey between the two worlds. However, the reality of physics dictates that by the time your transport ship actually arrives at your target destination, the planet Earth and the planet Mars will have drifted exceptionally far apart in their respective cosmic paths. Because of that massive distance gap, you will find yourself completely unable to leave the surface of Mars to initiate a return trip back home for a minimum duration of at least 400 continuous days. In point of fact, the mathematical data proves that it would actually require a significantly longer travel timeline to return to Earth if you attempted to leave immediately upon arrival than if you simply settled down and waited for the 400-day alignment window to open up. Consequently, once your boots touch down on the Martian surface, you are completely stuck there and you have no choice but to stay in that environment. Furthermore, the raw economic truth is that the financial resources required to transport human beings across the void to Mars and successfully build the infrastructure for the initial colonies are so staggeringly expensive that an expedition of this magnitude is always, inevitably, going to function strictly as a one-way journey. Personally, I absolutely do not like the idea of our space agencies repeating the exact same short-term pattern that we executed with the historical Apollo moon missions 50 years ago, where our astronauts travelled across space, walked around the surface for a few hours, gathered a few rock samples, and then immediately returned home, leaving the general public to look back and ask why we even bothered going there in the first place since we had already checked that box. When you study the diverse group of candidates who have applied for this mission, the most common psychological attribute that surfaces across all of them is this deep, powerful conviction that we are all deeply interested in serving an ultimate goal that is vastly bigger and more significant than our individual selves. This movement is thoroughly about executing an evolutionary leap for the benefit of our entire biological species. The historic journey to successfully transport human populations to Mars shares a remarkable cultural similarity to the struggles faced by the very first wooden ship settlers who sailed across the treacherous Atlantic Ocean to arrive in the Americas. The operational timeline, designed by Mars 1, intends to transport teams comprised of 4 individuals at a time, and every subsequent 2 years after the initial landing, a brand new team of 4 will arrive across the void to join the growing community. If the project maintains this pacing, we are eventually going to witness tens of thousands of human beings arriving on the planet. I am completely convinced that if our current generation makes this historic leap and successfully establishes active colonies off our home planet, we will be witnessing the next giant evolutionary milestone for all of humankind. Are our current high-level efforts to permanently leave the planet Earth to travel across space to Mars simply based on a natural human desire to explore and populate a fresh world? Or could this intense global drive be fueled by a biological mechanism that is vastly more profound? Is it possible that our species possesses a deep, subconscious yearning to return home to humankind's true, prehistoric place of biological origin? As far as alternative researchers are concerned, a massive collection of further vital clues still needs to be closely examined, starting directly with a series of recent scientific discoveries achieved on the surface of Mars that point directly to the historical presence of life. Let us travel back along our scientific timeline to the specific date of July 20th, 1976, when NASA's unmanned Viking 1 orbiter and landing module successfully completed its descent and touched down on the rocky surface of Mars. A mere 3 weeks after that historic milestone, the initial probe was joined by its identical companion craft, the Viking 2. For the absolute first time in the entire narrative of human history, our species had successfully established a continuous technological presence on the surface of an entirely alternative planet. However, the original Viking landers were strictly limited by their engineering. They touched down in one static geographic spot and were forced to remain exactly in that single location for the duration of their operations. Since that early era, our space agencies have made massive leaps forward by deploying advanced mobile systems like the Pathfinder Sojourner rover. For the first time, human engineers possess an active mobile platform on the Martian surface, meaning that if our cameras spot something shiny or unusual over on the distant horizon, and we want to obtain a closer look, we can easily command the rover to drive across the terrain to check it out. The machine can take physical samples, capture incredibly high-definition video footage, and beam that data directly back to our labs. This capability provides an exceptional start for mapping out exactly where human pioneers need to travel when we finally prepare to send transport ships to the planet. In the year 2012, this mobile exploration strategy achieved a massive milestone when the highly advanced Curiosity rover successfully completed its high-stakes landing inside Mars's massive Gale crater. This deployment represented the absolute most technologically ambitious and complex Mars mission ever attempted by NASA up to that point in history. The flight controllers cheered as touchdown was formally confirmed, verifying that our absolute best tracking systems had arrived safely on Mars. One of the primary scientific objectives established for the Curiosity rover was to gather meticulous environmental data that would directly assist global scientists in determining exactly what specific materials and resources are required to transform the harsh Martian landscape into a more hospitable environment for future human exploration. Let us look at a scientific meeting that took place in the month of June in the year 2018, when the highly respected scientist and aerospace engineer Dr. Travis Taylor travelled directly to the historic Johnson Space Center located in Houston, Texas. While touring the facility, he sat down for a detailed briefing with NASA's elite exploration mission scientist, Dr. Elizabeth Ramp. Dr. Ramp spends her professional life meticulously analysing the complex data streams being sent back across the void by the Mars Curiosity rover, which, entering its 6th year of continuous operations on the planet, is delivering some of its absolute most extraordinary and earth-shattering findings yet. Dr. Ramp points out that our laboratory teams have recently received some exceptionally late-breaking, highly significant news from the Curiosity rover, specifically regarding a series of highly fascinating data readouts generated by the sample analysis at Mars Instrument, an apparatus that team members colloquially call the SAM instrument. To help understand the setup, the SAM hardware is engineered with the capability to measure trace gases directly within the surrounding atmosphere, and it can also carefully analyse the specific gases that are systematically evolved from physical ground samples. To execute this process, the rover utilises its mechanical drill to penetrate a target rock, delivers that pulverised mineral powder directly into the internal testing oven of the instrument, heats the sample up to extreme temperatures, and then methodically measures the explicit chemical signatures of the gases that are released as the material outgasses. Through this method, the instrument can tell the laboratory teams exactly what specific chemical elements comprise the sample. Dr. Rampe confirms that a massive piece of empirical data has recently emerged from our monitoring of the Martian atmosphere, as our teams have been carefully tracking the presence of methane gas over the course of the last few consecutive Martian years. What the data reveals is that there is a highly distinct, predictable seasonal cycle to this gas, showing that the volume of methane spikes aggressively during the late summer and early autumn months, and then systematically dips back down to baseline levels during the cold winter season. Dr. Taylor is completely stunned by this revelation, noting that a recurring, predictable cycle like that could easily be driven by organic materials, pointing directly to a biological source operating on the planet. Dr. Ramp openly agrees with his assessment, confirming that this hypothesis is incredibly massive. While a seasonal spike in methane gas is not the single solitary hypothesis available to explain the data, you cannot rule out the distinct possibility that active, living biological organisms are currently thriving on Mars and generating this methane as part of their life processes. The undeniable fact that NASA has officially released verified data proving the existence of a continuous cycle of methane gas that rises in the summer and drops in the winter mirrors with absolute perfection, the exact way that organic biological processes generate methane gas here on our own planet. This data could easily serve as concrete structural proof that living organisms are actively thriving right now on the surface of Mars. The concept of active biological life thriving on Mars is a monumental idea. According to official statements from NASA researchers, such a profound notion has moved from the realm of science fiction into a distinct, highly viable reality. However, while the space agency continues to move with extreme academic caution as they work to completely verify and confirm these findings, alternative ancient astronaut theorists remain completely confident in the ultimate outcome of the research. They have resolutely maintained for multiple consecutive decades that the red planet not only hosts simple biological life, but that in the ancient past it served as the native home for a highly advanced, technologically superior extraterrestrial civilization. For their proof, they point directly to the verified existence of highly unusual geometric structures discovered across high-resolution photographs of the planet's surface. There is an immense collection of public claims centering around official satellite photographs that display highly anomalous features on the terrain of Mars. These explicit images are delivered by our orbiting spacecraft, which are continuously capturing high-definition panoramic pictures as they circle the planet day after day. When independent researchers carefully study these images, they frequently discover highly specific features that they interpret as artificial geometric or rectilinear structures that strongly indicate the historical presence of a complex civilization. When you look at the architecture, you see a landscape that matches exactly what you would expect to see if you travelled to an urban location on planet Earth 50,000 years into the future, after the human race had been completely wiped out by a catastrophe. These objects clearly display the hallmarks of genuine technological structures that have become completely fossilised and eroded by the brutal Martian elements over the course of millions of years. While the radical concept that a highly advanced ancient civilization once flourished on the surface of Mars may sound completely far-fetched to traditional academics, NASA's own instruments continue to make a series of profound discoveries that could ultimately reveal a reality that is even more incredible: the concept that all biological life on Earth originally originated on Mars. Let us return to the briefing room at the Johnson Space Center, where Dr. Elizabeth Ramp presents Dr. Travis Taylor with a highly unique geological specimen, asking him to identify the material. Dr. Taylor looks at the rock in awe as she confirms that the object is a genuine Martian meteorite, an actual physical rock that naturally travelled across space from Mars to land on Earth. Dr. Taylor asks how long ago this specimen originated, and she explains that the rock itself crystallised on the surface of Mars approximately 180 million years ago. To position that timeline into a clear historical context, 180 million years ago represents the exact prehistoric epoch when giant dinosaurs were actively roaming across the face of the Earth. We possess absolute scientific confirmation that this rock originated on Mars. Therefore, if viable organic material was actively present on the surface of Mars 3.5 billion years ago, a massive cosmic event could have easily caused that organic material to be blasted off the planet to travel across space to Earth. This timeline is exceptionally fascinating because 3.5 billion years ago represents the exact point in our geological history when biological life was first successfully taking hold in the primitive oceans of Earth. Furthermore, our climate models prove that during that exact ancient epoch, Mars was a highly hospitable, Earth-like world featuring massive flowing rivers and deep freshwater lakes. Therefore, we must ask why life could not have started there first. We have verified the presence of every single necessary building block for life on Mars. Consequently, it is entirely possible and highly viable that modern human beings are the direct biological descendants of ancient Martians. I am completely unwilling to rule that possibility out, because the entire conversation has fundamentally changed within the scientific community over the course of my personal career. If I had openly suggested a decade ago that humanity originally evolved on Mars, the general public would have assumed I was completely crazy, but today the dialogue has shifted dramatically. While NASA's latest scientific findings strongly suggest that life may currently exist on Mars and has potentially thrived there for billions of years, we must address the ultimate cosmic question. Is it possible that the red planet served as the explicit original seed source for all biological life here on Earth? Since the year 1974, the internationally renowned astrobiologist Dr. Chandra Wickramasinghe has aggressively advanced a highly fascinating and elegant scientific theory known throughout the world as panspermia. His model rigidly maintains that complex carbon-based organic matter exists in massive quantities directly amid interstellar space dust, and that these biological seeds are routinely transported across cosmic distances via travelling asteroids and crashing comets. The standard academic position held by conservative universities maintains that life spontaneously generated on Earth within a highly localized primitive primordial soup. However, when you look at reality, the planet Earth represents an exceptionally tiny, insignificant speck of dust when calculated against the terrifying scale of cosmic distances and universal size. Therefore, to stubbornly argue that the absolute most complex and sophisticated system that we will ever encounter in the universe, which is the miracle of biological life, spontaneously started on this single tiny speck of dust is an absolute travesty of common sense. There is no longer any valid question that the primary components of life came directly from outer space. When you study the origin of life on Earth, the first honest admission we must make is that mainstream science still has absolutely no concrete idea how, where, or when the initial spark occurred. However, there is one elegant scenario that works beautifully from an engineering standpoint, and that is the concept of impact ejector. The mechanics are simple. The planet Mars takes a massive hit from a heavy asteroid, blasting thousands of surface rocks directly into orbit with enough velocity to escape the planet's gravity. These Martian rocks travel across the short void and continuously rain down on the Earth as meteorites. Therefore, if any biological organisms or primitive life forms were active on Mars during that impact, they would be safely conveyed inside the rock structures to travel to Earth via this impact ejector. It is entirely possible that life originally started on Mars and travelled to Earth only later in the timeline, once our domestic environmental conditions finally settled down enough to host it. In the year 1953, the brilliant British geneticist Francis Crick, alongside the prominent American biologist James Watson, achieved one of the absolute greatest scientific breakthroughs in human history by discovering that the physical shape of human DNA operates as a magnificent three-dimensional double helix structure. However, as Francis Crick continued to dedicate his life to decoding the immense complexity of our genetic code, he arrived at a highly shocking mathematical conclusion. He realized that the information density inside human DNA is so overwhelmingly intricate that it could absolutely never have developed through mere random evolutionary chance over the course of Earth's history. Because of this mathematical reality, Crick openly published his firm belief that our genetic code did not originate on the planet Earth. When we analyse scientific terms like panspermia, the core engineering models resonate with absolute perfection with the foundational concepts of the ancient astronaut theory. This is because it completely confirms the model that biological life arrived on Earth as a whole, fully realised and highly complete system, and that the total timeline required for an evolutionary process to generate life from scratch would require a vastly longer lifespan than the planet Earth was ever capable of providing. This data immediately forces us to confront a highly profound question. Is it possible that life does not simply arrive on our world through completely random cosmic accidents, but is instead intentionally sent here to Earth as part of a highly organised plan? If, as ancient astronaut theorists firmly believe, life on Earth was deliberately seeded here by highly advanced extraterrestrial entities millions of years ago, did these cosmic creators possess an ultimate grand plan for the future of humanity? Perhaps further vital clues can be successfully uncovered by closely examining the ancient Sumerian records regarding the physical activities of these gods on Earth. In the year 2017, NASA's Advanced Exploration Systems Division officially published a major strategic report asserting that identifying, locating, and successfully extracting vital mineral resources in outer space, such as heavy iron, tungsten, and titanium, will be absolutely essential for ensuring the success of future human space exploration and colonization. The surface of our moon, alongside thousands of near-Earth asteroids that operate close to our position, are completely loaded with immense quantities of valuable minerals and raw industrial materials. If you look at the moon through a telescope, you will notice that regions like the Sea of Tranquility display a highly distinct alternative coloration because the terrain is completely covered by a thick layer of valuable titanium oxide. Furthermore, our orbital sensors have successfully confirmed the presence of rich uranium deposits on the moon by detecting the continuous venting of radon gas. Therefore, all sorts of vital materials are waiting for us out there. One of the prominent aerospace corporations that I am incredibly proud to have co-founded is a venture known as Planetary Resources, which operates with the explicit long-term vision of deploying robotic mining platforms to near-Earth asteroids to extract vital materials that can be processed into rocket fuel, alongside heavy platinum group precious metals and structural construction elements. However, as NASA makes active engineering plans to mine these essential minerals in space, we must confront a highly profound historical parallel. Is it possible that highly advanced alien civilizations travelled to Earth centuries ago for the exact same industrial reason? As far as alternative researchers are concerned, the answer is a definitive yes, and they believe the absolute proof is preserved inside the Sumerian stories of the Anunnaki, written more than 5,000 years ago. When we analyse the specific narrative of the Anunnaki's genetic creation of the human race, some highly fascinating nuances surface that provide a direct blueprint for understanding the exact challenges that human colonists will face in our own eventual colonisation of other planets. When the famed alternative researcher Zecharia Sitchin was deeply studying these Sumerian clay tablets during the decade of the 1970s, he not only reached the logical conclusion that the Anunnaki travelled to Earth to secure resources, but explicitly noted that they engineered the human population to serve as a workforce to extract gold from the ground. When you study the creation stories preserved inside traditional biblical texts, we are instructed that God generated the entire Earth over a timeline of 7 days. However, modern linguistic research proves that this consolidated version of the 7 days of creation can be traced directly back to a vastly older, highly descriptive Sumerian text known as the Atrahasis. This prehistoric epic is written across 7 distinct clay tablets of creation, telling a highly detailed story of how the Anunnaki travelled to Earth from space and systematically utilised advanced genetic engineering to create the human race in their own image, and after their exact likeness for the explicit purpose of mining gold for them. Is it within the boundaries of true reality that when the prehistoric Sumerians wrote about giant entities descending from the sky to dig deep holes into the earth to extract gold, they were documenting an actual visitation by advanced extraterrestrials who were running a massive mining operation, executing the exact same resource strategy that NASA is planning to implement in our near future? Let us travel along the scientific timeline to the month of June in the year 2018, where the prominent scientist and aerospace engineer Dr. Travis Taylor is walking through the massive structure known as Building 9 at the historic Johnson Space Center, which serves as the primary specialized training facility for elite human astronauts. While exploring the laboratory floor, he coordinates a meeting with the brilliant robotics engineer Lucien Junkin, who is completely eager to showcase the absolute latest engineering breakthrough in extraterrestrial ground transportation systems. Dr. Taylor looks upon the massive vehicle and notes that he clearly sees it is a highly advanced rover, asking the engineer to share a few specific details about its capabilities. Junkin enthusiastically confirms his description, explaining that this machine functions essentially as an elite, rugged off-roading recreational vehicle engineered explicitly to traverse the harsh terrains of the Moon and the planet Mars. Dr. Taylor pushes the investigation further, asking what specific technological features make this new mobile platform so vastly superior to the historic lunar rovers that were deployed during the old Apollo missions. Junkin explains that the core design concept is completely centered around long-term, deep-range exploration. He outlines a scenario where if you have a primary base habitat established on an alien world, your ground crew will take a pair of these specialized rovers and travel completely away from the base for a timeline spanning a week to 2 weeks at a time to deeply explore the distant frontier. Once their exploration loop is finished, they simply drive back to the habitat, completely refuel their systems, and then they are prepped and ready to head straight back out into the wilderness. Dr. Taylor asks if they can inspect the interior cabin, or perhaps take the massive rover out for a physical test drive, and Junkin immediately agrees, noting that a ride would be absolutely awesome, and instructing him to place his foot on the step to jump on up inside. The operators settle into the control seats, verify that the primary pilot systems are active, ensure the core electrical power is running, and systematically shift the transmission system directly into low gear. Junkin instructs him to push firmly forward on the primary control stick to initiate movement. The vehicle drives out onto the Planetary Analog Test Site, a specialised multi-acre training landscape that is known throughout the facility as the Rock Yard, which was systematically constructed to serve as a precise physical simulation of rugged lunar and Martian terrain. It is within this demanding environment that the space exploration vehicle undergoes continuous, highly rigorous testing to determine its absolute readiness for eventual off-Earth deployment and colonization missions. Junkin directs the steering, suggesting that they drive the massive rover directly through a large crater that is positioned right in front of them. He tells him to simply steer the vehicle straight up and over the ridge, and Dr. Taylor asks with surprise if the suspension system can truly handle that kind of extreme vertical terrain. Junkin confirms that it can easily master the obstacle, instructing him to brace his foot firmly against the designated panel to secure himself tightly inside his pilot seat. He explains that on a traditional military vehicle like a tank, you would typically feel the entire chassis begin to tip dangerously over when crossing a severe angle like this. However, this advanced machine features a highly innovative active suspension system where each of the independent wheel modules actively senses the terrain shifts in real time. Dr. Taylor watches the telemetry in amazement, noting how beautifully the system responds and confirming that it feels incredible to drive across practically any obstacle. He laughs in excitement as a massive boulder surfaces in their path, noting that when the rover encounters a giant rock like that, it does not even slow down, but simply rolls directly right over it, and Junkin smiles and tells him to just keep driving, run over it. Junkin stops the vehicle momentarily to showcase another highly unique engineering feature built into the drive system. He tells Dr. Taylor that they are going to pick out a specific target rock on the ground and systematically explore it using a highly specialised manoeuvre. Dr. Taylor selects a prominent geological specimen right over there, and Junkin commands the controls, showing how the entire vehicle can literally bow down low to the ground to bring the cabin windows directly adjacent to the target rock. Then he demonstrates another incredibly cool feature by twisting the primary control joystick, causing the wheel modules to rotate sideways. Dr. Taylor watches in complete astonishment, realizing that the massive rover can literally sideways crab walk across the terrain. Junkin demonstrates how this capability allows the crew to seamlessly rotate the vehicle in a perfect circle completely around the target rock while maintaining a continuous close visual inspection, telling him he is doing perfect behind the controls. Next, he points toward a massive, steep hill on the test site, telling Dr. Taylor to steer the rover straight up the big hill. The vehicle easily surges forward up the incline, and Junkin notes that this machine functions essentially as a rock climbing tool that is fully capable of climbing up a vertical wall if required. He explains that when engineering life support vehicles for space exploration, you want a machine that can comfortably travel into hazardous zones, where an astronaut on foot would look at the terrain and say, "There is no way I am risking my life support system by going in there." But this vehicle will easily do it if the crew has to. If the core models championed by alternative ancient astronaut theorists are completely correct, and advanced extraterrestrial visitors truly travelled across the cosmos to our planet thousands of years ago in a massive search for gold and alternative precious minerals, we must ask a highly critical question. Wouldn't there be distinct physical evidence left behind on the landscape? Wouldn't there be some form of telltale architectural sign proving that the Earth once functioned as the active site of a vast global mining operation? Alternative researchers firmly state that such evidence exists, pointing directly to a highly mysterious archaeological location situated in the high mountains of Peru, known as Cajamarquilla. At this specific mountain spot, explorers discovered thousands of strange, shallow pits that are carved into the solid rock, marching in a precise, uniform line directly up the rugged ridge of the mountain. These thousands of pits are exceptionally uniform in their dimensions, measuring roughly 2 to 3 feet deep, and they have completely baffled traditional archaeologists for generations. When you analyse these excavations through an engineering framework, what these pits might actually represent is the direct result of an automated mechanical mining probe that was systematically moving up the side of this mountain, digging these precise holes to sample the stone for valuable minerals. It is a fascinating reality that in our modern era, the region of Cajamarquilla is actively mined by large industrial corporations to extract zinc, a highly valuable mineral that is absolutely required to manufacture advanced metal alloys and global electrical equipment. Yet, if the planet Earth provided such a massive treasure trove of raw industrial materials for ancient extraterrestrial travellers, what specific resources would a neighbouring world like Mars have to offer them? Recent scientific findings released by NASA strongly suggest that the red planet could easily be capable of sustaining human life, and in ways that global society never before imagined. After multiple consecutive decades of scanning the solar system, planetary scientists firmly believe that they have recently made an absolutely incredible discovery on the surface of Mars. They have found verified proof of the existence of water. On the specific date of July 25, 2018, the European Space Agency officially announced that their Mars Express spacecraft had detected a massive subglacial lake located roughly a mile or so directly beneath the ice caps of the planet's otherwise completely arid and frozen surface. Once this finding is completely confirmed by secondary tracking data, it will stand as the single most monumental piece of evidence in human history, proving that Mars either hosted life in the ancient past, or perhaps still provides an active habitat for living organisms right now in our current era. We are fully aware, based on our biological models, that evidence for the spontaneous development of life occurs almost immediately as soon as you have a stable liquid water environment present on a planet, just as it did early in the history of Earth. Therefore, we can easily anticipate a series of cosmic scenarios where an advanced civilization could have intentionally seeded the planet Earth with biological components, while simultaneously seeding Mars so that life would develop in a remarkably similar fashion across both neighbouring worlds. The verified existence of liquid water on Mars will also provide a truly massive engineering benefit to our upcoming human colonisation efforts. While global scientists continue to carefully verify the precise dimensions of this subglacial lake, they have reached absolute consensus on one historical reality. They are now completely certain that in the deep cosmic past, the red planet was once a vibrant blue world, boasting massive oceans and a highly robust, thick atmosphere. One of the absolute most fantastic and surprising realizations that has emerged from our deployment of advanced orbiters and mobile rovers on Mars is unlocking the true history of its climate. The data proves that billions of years ago, when the first primitive life forms were just beginning to take hold in the oceans of Earth, Mars was a vastly more comfortable and hospitable planet. It featured a thick atmospheric blanket that successfully shielded the surface from hazardous cosmic radiation, and it was completely loaded with organic molecules which constitute the essential building blocks for all biological life as we know it. Therefore, it stands to perfect logical reason that Mars experienced its own domestic genesis, its own independent origin of life. Was Mars a fertile, thriving planet teeming with active life thousands or perhaps millions of years ago? Furthermore, can the modern Martian landscape be artificially modified in such a way that it can once again sustain human life over the long term? It is the stated official goal of NASA to launch transport ships to deliver the first human astronauts to Mars during the decade of the 2030s. However, while humanity's initial efforts to colonize outer space are well underway, there remains a tremendous amount of meticulous planning and foundational scientific groundwork to be executed before our species can truly begin to populate alien planets with massive numbers of humans. Right now, in our current generation, we are basically operating just as short-term tourists when we travel into space. We are forced to transport every single ounce of food, water, air and materials that we need directly with us from Earth. In order for our species to make the next genuine giant leap and become true spacefarers, we must learn to harvest and use the raw materials that we find directly on these alien surfaces to assist our exploration. The absolute moment we achieve that engineering step and learn to survive off the materials available on the surface, we officially transition from being mere tourists to becoming authentic interstellar pioneers. There is a massive abundance of resources already waiting for us out there. And of course, our ground teams are going to want to start constructing specialised agricultural greenhouses to plant crops. We are going to have to master the ability to grow our own food and live off the land the absolute best we can. Learning to live off the land on the surface of Mars is a major milestone. According to recent laboratory tests run by NASA scientists, innovations in agricultural engineering will allow us to utilise the raw Martian soil to grow food, making the landscape far more hospitable to humans than anyone previously believed possible. However, we must ask a highly profound question. Could this exact process of modifying a planet's environment to sustain life be identical to what advanced extraterrestrial entities successfully accomplished right here on Earth, millions of years ago? Alternative ancient astronaut theorists say a resounding yes, and they confidently suggest that the ancient oral histories preserved by nearly every early human culture across the globe provide concrete proof that this audacious concept is historical reality. One of the absolute strangest and most fascinating traditions in South America is preserved by the indigenous Kayapo people who live in the deep rainforests of Brazil. They have maintained a highly detailed legend for generations regarding a powerful sky teacher named Bep Kororoti, who originally descended down to earth from the heavens amidst a terrifying display of immense noise and violent wind, landing his craft directly in their ancestral territory. The legend states that he lived among the people and systematically taught them deep elements of civilization, including a comprehensive knowledge of medicinal herbs, strategies for building safe structures, and advanced methods for practicing agriculture and cultivation. Today, in our modern era, the Kayapo people continue to celebrate his arrival every single year through a highly sacred ritual. During this celebration, a designated tribal priest dresses up in a highly elaborate, outlandish outfit that is woven from straw and fibres. And when you look at this garment through a modern lens, it looks remarkably identical to a high-tech astronaut spacesuit. You truly have to look at this ritual and wonder where on Earth could an isolated jungle tribe obtain these explicit visual concepts of a person wearing a full spacesuit with a helmet, if not from an actual physical encounter with an advanced extraterrestrial traveller who touched down in their region in the distant past. Today, our own society stands directly on the absolute verge of travelling to alternative planets to seed them with our own biological life, and it makes complete logical sense that this exact same pattern occurred on our planet in the prehistoric past. Let us return to the advanced laboratories at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, where Dr. Elizabeth Ramp introduces Dr. Travis Taylor to a prominent space scientist named John Gruner, who operates as an elite researcher within NASA's Astromaterials Research and Exploration Science Division. Gruner is currently dedicating his career to determining exactly what specific plant species humans will be capable of successfully growing and eating on Mars, so that our future colonies can achieve long-term food security by living entirely off the planet's domestic resources. Dr. Taylor examines a container of dark, powdery material resting on the lab bench, asking the scientist to explain exactly what they are looking at. Gruner explains that the material is a highly unique form of weathered volcanic ash, a material known as tephra, which was carefully sourced because its mineral composition is structurally identical to the actual soil that covers the surface of Mars. He laughs, noting that while everyone across the globe thinks of Hawaii as a tropical beach paradise, if you travel up to the extreme summits of the massive volcanoes on the islands, the environment is exceptionally cold, dry, and barren. Because of those specific conditions, NASA has spent multiple decades harvesting this volcanic ash to serve as our primary general-purpose Martian soil simulant, and our research teams have spent years trying to grow real plants directly inside it. Dr. Taylor asks if they have achieved success in germinating seeds inside the simulant, and Gruner confirms that they have, noting that this success is entirely logical because human agricultural societies have successfully grown crops in rich volcanic soil all over the Earth for thousands of years, since it is completely packed with dense minerals. However, he points out that what we are drastically lacking on the surface of Mars are those vital biological components, the active organic materials that naturally thrive inside healthy Earth soil. Dr. Taylor smiles, noting that while science has traditionally assumed Mars is completely sterile, we might be wrong, especially now that our rovers have verified these seasonal spikes in methane gas. He asks if our future farmers will need to transport specific strains of live bacteria or fungi from Earth to mix into the raw Martian soil before seeds can successfully germinate and grow. Gruner enthusiastically agrees, explaining that plant roots cannot simply absorb raw minerals from dry dirt by themselves. They require a complex symbiotic relationship with underground microbes. He notes that this reality makes the official planetary protection officers at NASA go completely crazy because their job is to prevent contamination. But our colonization engineers are actively planning to bring massive payloads of live bacteria, specialized fungi, and microbes directly to Mars. Our teams are trying to understand if these microbes are already active on the planet, or if they ever were present in the past. Dr. Taylor brings forward his personal theory on the matter, stating his firm belief that we have likely already cross-contaminated the entire solar system through natural processes. He explains that just as Mars contaminated the Earth with organic material via meteorites, the Earth has experienced major asteroid impacts that blasted terrestrial rocks into space with enough escape velocity to reach a stable orbit that would eventually bring them down onto Mars. Therefore, if a massive comet or asteroid smashed into both worlds over the course of billions of years, we all share the exact same foundational material. Consequently, whatever organic components we locate here on Earth, we are highly likely to discover waiting for us over on Mars, and vice versa. The resources are simply sitting there on the crimson landscape, waiting for human pioneers to arrive to utilize them. If a large majority of the vital minerals and geological resources that exist on Earth are already waiting for us on the surface of Mars, is it within the realm of reality that the red planet not only hosted life in the ancient past, but actively supports living organisms even today? There are highly respected mainstream scientists who firmly believe the definitive answer to that question is yes, and they are fully prepared to take that hypothesis one massive step further. They suggest that our upcoming generations will be capable of utilizing highly sophisticated, large-scale terraforming technologies to completely transform the thin Martian atmosphere, systematically engineering the environment until it closely resembles the lush climate of Earth. When our species permanently ventures off the planet Earth, whether our destination is the Moon or the sands of Mars, we are ultimately faced with a stark evolutionary choice. We must either utilise advanced gene editing to evolve our own physical biology to survive the harsh environment, or we must use our heavy technology to turn that harsh environment into an Earth-like sanctuary. Just as our species evolved alongside our domestic biosphere on Earth, that exact same interactive process will unfold on Mars as we harvest the raw resources and systematically alter the landscape. It is deeply fascinating to realise that right now there are highly active, serious debates occurring within elite scientific circles centred around the literal engineering blueprints for the terraforming of Mars. This proves that our space agencies recognise Mars as a spectacular candidate to gradually develop a thick, protective atmosphere, just like the one we enjoy on Earth. This reality is completely incredible when you realise that a planet capable of sustaining biological life is an exceptionally rare anomaly among the billions and billions of cold, dead celestial bodies that comprise the universe. When the historic first human pioneers finally touch down on Mars, what will they truly discover? Will they step out into a completely dead, barren wasteland devoid of any life? Or will they be forced to confront a profound reality? Will they find themselves standing face to face with the unmistakable evidence of a highly advanced alien civilization that completely dominated the planet thousands of years ago? As professional research teams face the truly colossal and exhausting challenges associated with establishing permanent human colonies in outer space, a large majority of aerospace experts hold a firm conviction that advanced robotic machines equipped with state-of-the-art artificial intelligence will inevitably play an absolutely critical role in the mission. Even in our present historical era, specialised AI software systems are being aggressively utilised by astronomers to successfully track down hidden alien planets, methodically classify highly distant galaxies, and even engineer advanced uncrewed spacecraft with the autonomous capability to rapidly dodge hazardous orbiting space debris. Consider the highly successful deployment of historical robotic probes like NASA's Cassini spacecraft, for example, which courageously explored the frozen depths of outer space for a timeline spanning nearly 20 continuous years, and was absolutely instrumental in our detailed scientific study of the planet Saturn and its massive ring systems. Throughout our entire exploration history, human space agencies have always systematically sent uncrewed robotic probes out into the dark ahead of actual human astronauts for the explicit purpose of uncovering a massive array of unknown dangers, such as calculating whether intense cosmic radiation fields will prove immediately hazardous or deadly to the human body. Once our transport ships finally arrive at these distant target destinations, rather than forcing human astronauts to execute dangerous spacewalks outside in their suits completely by themselves, the operational architecture will centre around teams of astronauts and highly intelligent robots exploring the dangerous frontiers together as partners. A large majority of industrial experts completely agree that before long-term travel into deep space can successfully manifest for our species, artificially intelligent robotic platforms will absolutely need to possess the autonomous capability to harvest raw mineral resources from space rocks to keep their own internal systems operating indefinitely. A highly compelling version of this exact engineering concept was originally brought forward by the legendary Hungarian scientist and brilliant mathematician John von Neumann during the decade of the 1960s. He systematically formulated a comprehensive model centered around a self-replicating robotic probe that could be constructed, maintained, and continuously rebuilt, utilize raw materials found directly on passing space asteroids. Von Neumann clearly envisioned a futuristic scenario where these self-replicating automatons would utilize raw asteroidal rubble as their primary source material for manufacturing. According to his design logic, these highly advanced machines could be launched from Earth to travel to an alternative planetary system, and upon arrival, the automated platform would immediately begin manufacturing identical copies of itself, eventually evolving from a basic original unit into a vastly more complex, highly specialized network of machines. Starting from a single lonely probe, the automated system manufactures 1,000 copies, which then multiply into 1,000,000 units, expanding rapidly into 1,000,000,000 and eventually 1,000,000,000,000 active probes, creating a massive collective sphere comprised of trillions of coordinated mechanical sensors colonizing the entire galaxy at a speed approaching the velocity of light. In our current era, NASA has actively proposed engineering models that mirror this exact concept, aiming to deploy autonomous, self-replicating machines directly out into the dense asteroid belt, which represents an environment that is exceptionally rich in valuable minerals and industrial materials that are highly accessible because the small space rocks possess exceptionally low gravitational fields. When you execute a mining mission in that region, your spacecraft does not undergo a high-risk landing sequence on the asteroid. Instead, you simply execute a precise docking maneuver to secure your platform to the rock. Is it truly within the realm of reality that in our upcoming generations we will be looking upon a future dominated by such self-replicating autonomous fleets, independently building massive spaceships out of raw asteroidal rubble, travelling to entirely different star systems, and executing deep cosmic exploration missions entirely on our behalf? When you evaluate the rapid advancement of computer science, such a scenario is completely and thoroughly conceivable. However, if highly intelligent robotic platforms represent humanity's absolute best hope for successfully exploring the vast expanses of the galaxy, we must confront a highly fascinating historical question. Is it possible that the planet Earth was actively visited by highly advanced extraterrestrial robots hundreds or perhaps even thousands of years ago in our prehistoric past? Furthermore, if such mechanical probes were deployed to our world in ancient times, are we highly likely to encounter their active monitoring systems once again as we venture out into space? When you analyse the logic of exploration, if our own society prepares to travel to alternative planetary systems, our engineers would naturally send mechanical probes down to the surface first to carefully evaluate the local climate, identify the present minerals, map out the surface temperatures, and catalogue every environmental variable. Therefore, you must assume that an advanced extraterrestrial civilization would execute the exact same logical strategy when analysing our own planet. When you pause to reflect on it, sending out highly intelligent robotic systems to probe a target world has to be one of the absolute most fundamental baseline strategies that an advanced race would implement first. Mechanical drones are completely expendable. They require no heavy life support infrastructure, and you can easily mass manufacture them to deploy them everywhere across the cosmos. Consequently, perhaps our global tracking systems should actively be searching for these hidden mechanical systems as our primary method for confirming the presence of aliens. According to alternative ancient astronaut theorists, clear structural evidence proving that advanced extraterrestrials deployed robotic systems to Earth can be successfully located by deeply analysing the written records and oral traditions of ancient human cultures. For example, if you investigate the famous epic story of the Argonauts, which constitutes a highly celebrated prehistoric Greek myth, our society is introduced for the absolute first time in written history to a legendary being named Talos. When you look at the explicit descriptions of Talos through a modern engineering framework, he represents exactly what we would call a highly advanced robot in our current era. The ancient Greek records state that Talos was programmed to continuously patrol and surround the massive island of Crete, and whenever an unauthorized foreign ship attempted to approach the shoreline of the island, he would immediately move to aggressively shut down the intruders, unless the approaching sailors possessed a highly specific, authorized communication code that commanded the mechanical guardian to halt his attack. Therefore, based upon his explicit operational parameters, the entity of Talos functioned exactly like an automated combat robot. An exceptionally important and prominent figure operating within early Greek mythology was a divine character named Cadmus, who is revered as the first great hero of the culture and occupied the 5th lineage spot, descending directly from the king of the gods, Zeus. The ancient records state that it was Cadmus who originally brought the vital knowledge of agriculture to the early human population, initiated the foundations of organised civilization, and introduced the advanced technology required to manufacture bronze. He possessed the highly specialised metallurgical knowledge required to mix alloys and engineer custom metals, an achievement which, during those early stages of human development, marked the absolute dawn of advanced technology. He was universally celebrated as a powerful slayer of terrifying monsters. The myth highlights a historic event where he successfully battled and killed a massive water dragon, extracted the creature's teeth, and systematically planted them directly into the ground like seeds. The ancient story claims that a legion of great, fierce, fully armoured warriors spontaneously grew directly out of the ground from those planted teeth to serve him. When you strip away the mythological language, we have to seriously wonder if this narrative is not actually depicting a highly advanced deployment of mechanical soldiers being powered by some form of high-energy extraterrestrial technology. When you look at the current state of our planet and attempt to hypothesize exactly what occurred here in our deep past regarding extraterrestrial contact, you must ask what specific forces arrived first. Consider how humanity is currently exploring Mars. We are deploying a fleet of little electronic rovers all over the place to scan the dirt. Is it not completely logical that an advanced alien race did the exact same thing to the planet Earth, or did they bypass that step to land directly on the ground with organic occupants? Personally, I think what highly probably happened during prehistoric times was that a massive mothercraft arrived in orbit around Earth, and the alien commanders systematically sent down a fleet of autonomous robots or advanced androids to deeply explore the physical conditions of the planet before risking their own biological lives. Let us return to the advanced laboratories at the Johnson Space Center, where Dr. Travis Taylor walks into the robotics lab and meets with a prominent researcher named Julia Badger. Dr. Taylor looks around the facility in awe, and Badger enthusiastically welcomes him to the specialized dexterous robotics laboratory, pointing directly toward their absolute premier engineering platform, a highly advanced humanoid machine officially named Robonaut. Badger explains that a large majority of our future space exploration concepts are completely designed around sending our heavy assets, our advanced spacecraft, our food supplies, and our logistics hardware to the target planet first using automated systems to ensure everything is fully operational, and then finally launching our human crew members across the void. Therefore, it is entirely possible that these intelligent robots will actually build our habitats, assemble our laboratories, and prepare the entire base infrastructure completely before a single human being ever arrives on the planet. Badger confirms that this is exactly the primary strategy behind the research. Dr. Taylor pushes the engineering inquiry further, asking what would happen if a critical system suffered damage on the exterior hull of a transport ship during a voyage. Could Robonauts step outside to execute those complex repairs so that a human crew member would not have to risk their life by stepping out into the void? Badger enthusiastically answers absolutely, noting that robots are perfectly optimized to handle tasks that are categorized as dull, dirty, or dangerous, allowing the human crew members inside the safety of the spacecraft cabin to essentially merge their consciousness with the machine and command its every movement. Dr. Taylor looks closely at the machine and notes that Robonaut features an exceptionally humanoid appearance, asking why the engineering team chose to make it look so remarkably human when it technically does not require a physical head and its sensors could easily be positioned anywhere on the chassis. Badger explains that because this machine was explicitly engineered to operate inside a human-designed environment and work directly alongside human astronauts as a teammate, the design group decided that form should naturally follow function. Therefore, while it represents a highly logical engineering decision, it also functions as an excellent psychological choice to promote positive human interaction. She points out that NASA has actually maintained an active Robonaut unit on board the International Space Station for many consecutive years, and the ground controllers routinely receive eager requests from the crew members asking if they can post a photo of themselves hanging out with Robonaut or practicing Tai Chi together, which proves that the humanoid form actively promotes powerful social bonding. Dr. Taylor notes that our space agencies can learn a major lesson from that dynamic. He suggests a scenario where if humanity ever voyages to a distant star system and encounters an intelligent alien culture that does not possess a bipedal structure, such as a population of quadrupeds, our engineers would naturally want to modify our AI platforms to match their form, sending a quadrupedal robot to promote bonding, and Badger completely agrees, noting that humans naturally put faces on everything, and you would execute the exact same strategy for an alien culture. He asks what specific computing architecture runs the machine's internal intelligence, and Badger explains that they utilize advanced vision processing systems operating alongside highly complex neural networks. She reveals that their current project involves connecting the Robonaut directly to the central computer of the spacecraft, effectively generating a smart spaceship that is fully aware of every mechanical status within its walls and can autonomously command the robot to execute maintenance, such as telling Robonaut to go change out a specific air filter. Dr. Taylor laughs, bringing up the classic negative science fiction scenario where the onboard AI becomes too intelligent and decides to launch a hostile takeover. But Badger smiles and states that she is absolutely not worried about that scenario just yet. Is the human race simply following directly in the ancient footsteps of its prehistoric alien ancestors by utilizing humanoid robotic systems to conquer the challenges of exploring and colonizing alternative worlds? Alternative researchers say a resounding yes. However, we must ask how the human race will successfully fulfill its ultimate interstellar destiny if advanced robots are the only entities capable of safely functioning on these harsh foreign planets. For a large majority of visionaries, the answer is remarkably simple. Successfully surviving and thriving on a world like Mars will ultimately require not only the engineering of new technology, but the biological manifestation of a completely new breed of human beings. Let us shift our focus to an advanced training facility hidden within the Johnson Space Center, where Dr. Travis Taylor meets with a prominent aerospace specialist named Paul Valley, who operates as the primary project manager for the Active Response Gravity Offload System, a highly complex apparatus that engineers universally refer to by its acronym ARGOS. Dr. Taylor is completely eager to experience firsthand exactly how future space colonists will be physically trained in order to successfully survive and execute heavy labour inside reduced gravity environments. The technicians secure him into a heavy overhead harness system, calibrate the computer weights, and Vallée announces that the system is fully active, telling him that he is now officially standing on Mars. Dr. Taylor takes a tentative step forward and realises with surprise that he can easily jump incredibly high into the air with minimal physical effort. He notes that if he were an astronaut attempting to walk across the landscape of Mars, the Argos simulator provides an absolutely amazing and sobering piece of insight, forcing you to realise that it is exceptionally difficult to work on a planet that does not feature the exact gravitational pull of the world you were born on. He explains that if humans are operating on Mars or the Moon, we will be forced to completely retrain our minds and our physical muscles to master movement. He struggles to maintain his balance, noting that simply trying to stand up after a fall is an exceptionally grueling task, and pointing out that if any ancient civilizations executed planetary migrations in our past, their astronauts would have had to undergo the exact same intensive training, or else the absolute moment they touched down on Earth, they would appear completely clumsy and helpless. Vallée agrees, noting that moving across the terrain becomes almost impossible when you factor in the massive weight of a full spacesuit and an independent life support system. And Dr. Taylor notes that human beings never truly realise how heavily we rely on normal Earth gravity to execute every single daily action until it is suddenly gone. Although recent video footage released by NASA displaying astronauts effortlessly performing acrobatic somersaults in mid-air or playfully eating floating candies paints a highly whimsical and fun picture of what it is like to live in a zero-gravity environment, the clinical reality is vastly more terrifying. The total lack of gravitational resistance can, over an extended period of time, cause an absolutely devastating and profound destruction of the human body. Therefore, when our space agencies make the concrete decision to transport populations to Mars, our medical teams must first meticulously analyse every single hidden aspect of human physiology to understand how our systems will operate in a low-gravity environment. Our physical bodies will inevitably alter their structure to survive that space environment. Our laboratories are actively executing intensive medical research right now, deeply studying the long-term biological effects of weightlessness and tracking how the body reacts when it finally returns to Earth. Let us travel along the medical timeline to the specific date of March the 2nd, 2016, marking a historic event in the nation of Kazakhstan as the legendary American astronaut Scott Kelly successfully returns to Earth after completing a record-shattering 340-day continuous mission aboard the International Space Station. The primary scientific objective behind the extreme duration of this orbital mission was to provide global researchers with an absolute wealth of clinical data detailing exactly how prolonged exposure to zero gravity affects human anatomy. To maximise the value of this research, Scott's identical twin brother, Mark Kelly, who is also an elite retired astronaut, served as the primary control subject on the ground. Because his twin brother remained on Earth and possessed a DNA structure that was theoretically identical to Scott's, geneticists could systematically compare their blood samples to determine exactly what specific types of DNA modifications had occurred inside Scott's body during his year in space. When the genetic teams finalised their extensive post-mission laboratory testing, they uncovered an absolutely astonishing and historic reality. They confirmed that approximately 7% of Scott Kelly's core DNA expression had been permanently altered by his environment. The extensive laboratory data confirmed that a massive number of genes explicitly related to Scott Kelly's immune system, his internal DNA repair mechanisms, his cellular bone formation networks, his cardiovascular bloodstream health, and numerous alternative critical biological systems had all been radically transformed. These startling genetic results immediately prompted elite scientists around the world to ask a highly profound question: what are the ultimate biological implications for human beings who choose to leave the planet Earth permanently? Personally, I dedicated a large portion of my early medical research to tracking exactly how human physiology adapts to the space environment as a spacecraft pushes up into orbit. Based on the data, it is a certainty that our species will naturally begin to speciate, forming distinct subspecies of humans as our populations head off towards the stars. Therefore, perhaps our space colonization groups should intentionally utilize advanced gene editing to genetically modify ourselves to comfortably thrive in deep space. We are going to be forced to modify our biological code if we want our descendants to successfully resist toxic atmospheres, intense cosmic rays, and blinding solar radiation. We must ask if we are truly prepared to use genome editing tools to deliberately evolve our bodies to meet the unyielding demands of space, because the human race is moving irreversibly off this planet. Let us shift our focus to the month of February in the year 2017, when the maverick geneticist Dr. George Church of Harvard University makes a stunning public announcement that sounds like a plot point extracted straight out of a Hollywood science fiction movie. Utilizing a revolutionary genome editing apparatus known across the scientific community as CRISPR-Cas9, his research teams successfully combined the live DNA of a modern Asian elephant with genetic material extracted from a woolly mammoth, a species that has been completely extinct for nearly 4,000 years, through the highly precise substitution of 45 specific sections of the elephant's genome with the prehistoric DNA of the woolly mammoth. The geneticists confidently insist that a creature from ancient history could soon be actively walking across the Earth once again. The critical realization to extract from this breakthrough is that once a society possesses the technology to completely decode a living organism's DNA and systematically recode it at will, you simultaneously possess the absolute power to genetically alter any human being, animal or plant species on Earth. Therefore, you possess the engineering capability to intentionally construct a highly modified humanoid species that will be vastly better adapted to endure the rigours of long-term space travel and comfortably colonize the surface of a completely alternative planet. If you look at this through a historical lens, an advanced extraterrestrial civilization arriving on our world in the ancient past could have easily executed exactly the same genetic strategy. Could advanced alien creators, in full possession of that exact same DNA-altering knowledge, have systematically implemented it to assist their own colonization efforts right here on Earth thousands of years ago? An idea which traditional universities once dismissed as completely absurd now appears remarkably and eerily plausible to mainstream science. If you possess this technology, you can easily travel back in time along our evolutionary line, isolate prehistoric pre-human hominids, and systematically modify their genetic structure to create what has ultimately become modern Homo sapiens. With the exact level of gene editing technology we possess in our laboratories today, human scientists could easily select a near-sentient animal species on Earth and initiate a series of targeted genetic modifications to generate an entirely new sentient race, in addition to intentionally modifying the human biological framework to make it better suited for interstellar transit and colonization. A large number of advanced cybernetics experts propose that a true survival strategy will also require a complete merging of man and machine. They argue that our future space colonists will need to be systematically fitted with high-tech biomechatronic parts to generate a cybernetic human that is drastically smarter, faster, stronger, and more durable than a natural organism. I have been actively engaging in deep conversations with prominent research scientists, and they openly state that the absolute next evolutionary phase for our species will be the widespread cyborg evolution of humanity, specifically optimized for those individuals who are destined to colonize outer space. We have always maintained this classic Hollywood image that an alien spacecraft is going to land on the White House lawn, the doors will slide open, and an organic creature looking somewhat like us will step out and proclaim, "Take me to your leader, Earthman." But the reality of space travel suggests it could be completely different. The entities arriving could easily be part organic and part robotic. You must realize that an alien civilization operating in our galaxy could easily be thousands of years more advanced than our own. Therefore, if an advanced culture is active out there, they have already bypassed the limits of biology and constructed these highly superior robotic bodies. Why should humanity sit around on our hands waiting for them to travel to us to give us the answers someday, when we possess the capability to transform ourselves into a massive spacefaring civilization to venture out and answer these cosmic questions for ourselves? As professional research teams face the truly colossal and exhausting challenges associated with establishing permanent human colonies in outer space, a large majority of aerospace experts hold a firm conviction that advanced robotic machines equipped with state-of-the-art artificial intelligence will inevitably play an absolutely critical role in the mission. Even in our present historical era, specialized AI software systems are being aggressively utilized by astronomers to successfully track down hidden alien planets, methodically classify highly distant galaxies, and even engineer advanced uncrewed spacecraft with the autonomous capability to rapidly dodge hazardous orbiting space debris. Consider the highly successful deployment of historical robotic probes like NASA's Cassini spacecraft, for example, which courageously explored the frozen depths of outer space for a timeline spanning nearly 20 continuous years, and was absolutely instrumental in our detailed scientific study of the planet Saturn and its massive ring systems. Throughout our entire exploration history, human space agencies have always systematically sent uncrewed robotic probes out into the dark ahead of actual human astronauts for the explicit purpose of uncovering a massive array of unknown dangers, such as calculating whether intense cosmic radiation fields will prove immediately hazardous or deadly to the human body. Once our transport ships finally arrive at these distant target destinations, rather than forcing human astronauts to execute dangerous spacewalks outside in their suits completely by themselves, the operational architecture will centre around teams of astronauts and highly intelligent robots exploring the dangerous frontiers together as partners. A large majority of industrial experts completely agree that before long-term travel into deep space can successfully manifest for our species, artificially intelligent robotic platforms will absolutely need to possess the autonomous capability to harvest raw mineral resources from space rocks to keep their own internal systems operating indefinitely. A highly compelling version of this exact engineering concept was originally brought forward by the legendary Hungarian scientist and brilliant mathematician John von Neumann during the decade of the 1960s. He systematically formulated a comprehensive model centered around a self-replicating robotic probe that could be constructed, maintained, and continuously rebuilt, utilize raw materials found directly on passing space asteroids. Von Neumann clearly envisioned a futuristic scenario where these self-replicating automatons would utilize raw asteroidal rubble as their primary source material for manufacturing. According to his design logic, these highly advanced machines could be launched from Earth to travel to an alternative planetary system, and upon arrival, the automated platform would immediately begin manufacturing identical copies of itself, eventually evolving from a basic original unit into a vastly more complex, highly specialized network of machines. Starting from a single lonely probe, the automated system manufactures 1,000 copies, which then multiply into 1,000,000 units, expanding rapidly into 1,000,000,000 and eventually 1,000,000,000,000 active probes, creating a massive collective sphere comprised of trillions of coordinated mechanical sensors colonizing the entire galaxy at a speed approaching the velocity of light. In our current era, NASA has actively proposed engineering models that mirror this exact concept, aiming to deploy autonomous, self-replicating machines directly out into the dense asteroid belt, which represents an environment that is exceptionally rich in valuable minerals and industrial materials that are highly accessible because the small space rocks possess exceptionally low gravitational fields. When you execute a mining mission in that region, your spacecraft does not undergo a high-risk landing sequence on the asteroid. Instead, you simply execute a precise docking maneuver to secure your platform to the rock. Is it truly within the realm of reality that in our upcoming generations we will be looking upon a future dominated by such self-replicating autonomous fleets, independently building massive spaceships out of raw asteroidal rubble, travelling to entirely different star systems, and executing deep cosmic exploration missions entirely on our behalf? When you evaluate the rapid advancement of computer science, such a scenario is completely and thoroughly conceivable. However, if highly intelligent robotic platforms represent humanity's absolute best hope for successfully exploring the vast expanses of the galaxy, we must confront a highly fascinating historical question. Is it possible that the planet Earth was actively visited by highly advanced extraterrestrial robots hundreds or perhaps even thousands of years ago in our prehistoric past? Furthermore, if such mechanical probes were deployed to our world in ancient times, are we highly likely to encounter their active monitoring systems once again as we venture out into space? When you analyse the logic of exploration, if our own society prepares to travel to alternative planetary systems, our engineers would naturally send mechanical probes down to the surface first to carefully evaluate the local climate, identify the present minerals, map out the surface temperatures, and catalogue every environmental variable. Therefore, you must assume that an advanced extraterrestrial civilization would execute the exact same logical strategy when analysing our own planet. When you pause to reflect on it, sending out highly intelligent robotic systems to probe a target world has to be one of the absolute most fundamental baseline strategies that an advanced race would implement first. Mechanical drones are completely expendable. They require no heavy life support infrastructure, and you can easily mass manufacture them to deploy them everywhere across the cosmos. Consequently, perhaps our global tracking systems should actively be searching for these hidden mechanical systems as our primary method for confirming the presence of aliens. According to alternative ancient astronaut theorists, clear structural evidence proving that advanced extraterrestrials deployed robotic systems to Earth can be successfully located by deeply analysing the written records and oral traditions of ancient human cultures. For example, if you investigate the famous epic story of the Argonauts, which constitutes a highly celebrated prehistoric Greek myth, our society is introduced for the absolute first time in written history to a legendary being named Talos. When you look at the explicit descriptions of Talos through a modern engineering framework, he represents exactly what we would call a highly advanced robot in our current era. The ancient Greek records state that Talos was programmed to continuously patrol and surround the massive island of Crete, and whenever an unauthorized foreign ship attempted to approach the shoreline of the island, he would immediately move to aggressively shut down the intruders, unless the approaching sailors possessed a highly specific, authorized communication code that commanded the mechanical guardian to halt his attack. Therefore, based upon his explicit operational parameters, the entity of Talos functioned exactly like an automated combat robot. An exceptionally important and prominent figure operating within early Greek mythology was a divine character named Cadmus, who is revered as the first great hero of the culture and occupied the fifth lineage spot, descending directly from the king of the gods, Zeus. The ancient records state that it was Cadmus who originally brought the vital knowledge of agriculture to the early human population, initiated the foundations of organised civilization, and introduced the advanced technology required to manufacture bronze. He possessed the highly specialised metallurgical knowledge required to mix alloys and engineer custom metals, an achievement which, during those early stages of human development, marked the absolute dawn of advanced technology. He was universally celebrated as a powerful slayer of terrifying monsters. The myth highlights a historic event where he successfully battled and killed a massive water dragon, extracted the creature's teeth, and systematically planted them directly into the ground like seeds. The ancient story claims that a legion of great, fierce, fully armoured warriors spontaneously grew directly out of the ground from those planted teeth to serve him. When you strip away the mythological language, we have to seriously wonder if this narrative is not actually depicting a highly advanced deployment of mechanical soldiers being powered by some form of high-energy extraterrestrial technology. When you look at the current state of our planet and attempt to hypothesize exactly what occurred here in our deep past regarding extraterrestrial contact, you must ask what specific forces arrived first. Consider how humanity is currently exploring Mars. We are deploying a fleet of little electronic rovers all over the place to scan the dirt. Is it not completely logical that an advanced alien race did the exact same thing to the planet Earth, or did they bypass that step to land directly on the ground with organic occupants? Personally, I think what highly probably happened during prehistoric times was that a massive mothercraft arrived in orbit around Earth, and the alien commanders systematically sent down a fleet of autonomous robots or advanced androids to deeply explore the physical conditions of the planet before risking their own biological lives. Let us return to the advanced laboratories at the Johnson Space Center, where Dr. Travis Taylor walks into the robotics lab and meets with a prominent researcher named Julia Badger. Dr. Taylor looks around the facility in awe, and Badger enthusiastically welcomes him to the specialized dexterous robotics laboratory, pointing directly toward their absolute premier engineering platform, a highly advanced humanoid machine officially named Robonaut. Badger explains that a large majority of our future space exploration concepts are completely designed around sending our heavy assets, our advanced spacecraft, our food supplies, and our logistics hardware to the target planet first using automated systems to ensure everything is fully operational, and then finally launching our human crew members across the void. Therefore, it is entirely possible that these intelligent robots will actually build our habitats, assemble our laboratories, and prepare the entire base infrastructure completely before a single human being ever arrives on the planet. Badger confirms that this is exactly the primary strategy behind the research. Dr. Taylor pushes the engineering inquiry further, asking what would happen if a critical system suffered damage on the exterior hull of a transport ship during a voyage. Could Robonaut step outside to execute those complex repairs so that a human crew member would not have to risk their life by stepping out into the void? Badger enthusiastically answers absolutely, noting that robots are perfectly optimized to handle tasks that are categorized as dull, dirty, or dangerous, allowing the human crew members inside the safety of the spacecraft cabin to essentially merge their consciousness with the machine and command its every movement. Dr. Taylor looks closely at the machine and notes that Robonaut features an exceptionally humanoid appearance, asking why the engineering team chose to make it look so remarkably human when it technically does not require a physical head and its sensors could easily be positioned anywhere on the chassis. Badger explains that because this machine was explicitly engineered to operate inside a human-designed environment and work directly alongside human astronauts as a teammate, the design group decided that form should naturally follow function. Therefore, while it represents a highly logical engineering decision, it also functions as an excellent psychological choice to promote positive human interaction. She points out that NASA has actually maintained an active Robonaut unit on board the International Space Station for many consecutive years, and the ground controllers routinely receive eager requests from the crew members asking if they can post a photo of themselves hanging out with Robonaut or practicing Tai Chi together, which proves that the humanoid form actively promotes powerful social bonding. Dr. Taylor notes that our space agencies can learn a major lesson from that dynamic. He suggests a scenario where if humanity ever voyages to a distant star system and encounters an intelligent alien culture that does not possess a bipedal structure, such as a population of quadrupeds, our engineers would naturally want to modify our AI platforms to match their form, sending a quadrupedal robot to promote bonding, and Badger completely agrees, noting that humans naturally put faces on everything, and you would execute the exact same strategy for an alien culture. He asks what specific computing architecture runs the machine's internal intelligence, and Badger explains that they utilize advanced vision processing systems operating alongside highly complex neural networks. She reveals that their current project involves connecting the Robonaut directly to the central computer of the spacecraft, effectively generating a smart spaceship that is fully aware of every mechanical status within its walls and can autonomously command the robot to execute maintenance, such as telling Robonaut to go change out a specific air filter. Dr. Taylor laughs, bringing up the classic negative science fiction scenario where the onboard AI becomes too intelligent and decides to launch a hostile takeover. But Badger smiles and states that she is absolutely not worried about that scenario just yet. Is the human race simply following directly in the ancient footsteps of its prehistoric alien ancestors by utilizing humanoid robotic systems to conquer the challenges of exploring and colonizing alternative worlds? Alternative researchers say a resounding yes. However, we must ask how the human race will successfully fulfill its ultimate interstellar destiny if advanced robots are the only entities capable of safely functioning on these harsh foreign planets. For a large majority of visionaries, the answer is remarkably simple. Successfully surviving and thriving on a world like Mars will ultimately require not only the engineering of new technology, but the biological manifestation of a completely new breed of human beings. Let us shift our focus to an advanced training facility hidden within the Johnson Space Center, where Dr. Travis Taylor meets with a prominent aerospace specialist named Paul Valley, who operates as the primary project manager for the Active Response Gravity Offload System, a highly complex apparatus that engineers universally refer to by its acronym ARGOS. Dr. Taylor is completely eager to experience firsthand exactly how future space colonists will be physically trained in order to successfully survive and execute heavy labour inside reduced gravity environments. The technicians secure him into a heavy overhead harness system, calibrate the computer weights, and Valley announces that the system is fully active. telling him that he is now officially standing on Mars. Dr. Taylor takes a tentative step forward and realises with surprise that he can easily jump incredibly high into the air with minimal physical effort. He notes that if he were an astronaut attempting to walk across the landscape of Mars, the Argos simulator provides an absolutely amazing and sobering piece of insight, forcing you to realise that it is exceptionally difficult to work on a planet that does not feature the exact gravitational pull of the world you were born on. He explains that if humans are operating on Mars or the Moon, we will be forced to completely retrain our minds and our physical muscles to master movement. He struggles to maintain his balance, noting that simply trying to stand up after a fall is an exceptionally grueling task, and pointing out that if any ancient civilizations executed planetary migrations in our past, their astronauts would have had to undergo the exact same intensive training, or else the absolute moment they touched down on Earth, they would appear completely clumsy and helpless. Vallée agrees, noting that moving across the terrain becomes almost impossible when you factor in the massive weight of a full spacesuit and an independent life support system. And Dr. Taylor notes that human beings never truly realise how heavily we rely on normal Earth gravity to execute every single daily action until it is suddenly gone. Although recent video footage released by NASA displaying astronauts effortlessly performing acrobatic somersaults in mid-air or playfully eating floating candies paints a highly whimsical and fun picture of what it is like to live in a zero-gravity environment, the clinical reality is vastly more terrifying. The total lack of gravitational resistance can, over an extended period of time, cause an absolutely devastating and profound destruction of the human body. Therefore, when our space agencies make the concrete decision to transport populations to Mars, our medical teams must first meticulously analyse every single hidden aspect of human physiology to understand how our systems will operate in a low-gravity environment. Our physical bodies will inevitably alter their structure to survive that space environment. Our laboratories are actively executing intensive medical research right now, deeply studying the long-term biological effects of weightlessness and tracking how the body reacts when it finally returns to Earth. Let us travel along the medical timeline to the specific date of March the 2nd, 2016, marking a historic event in the nation of Kazakhstan as the legendary American astronaut Scott Kelly successfully returns to Earth after completing a record-shattering 340-day continuous mission aboard the International Space Station. The primary scientific objective behind the extreme duration of this orbital mission was to provide global researchers with an absolute wealth of clinical data detailing exactly how prolonged exposure to zero gravity affects human anatomy. To maximise the value of this research, Scott's identical twin brother, Mark Kelly, who is also an elite retired astronaut, served as the primary control subject on the ground. Because his twin brother remained on Earth and possessed a DNA structure that was theoretically identical to Scott's, geneticists could systematically compare their blood samples to determine exactly what specific types of DNA modifications had occurred inside Scott's body during his year in space. When the genetic teams finalised their extensive post-mission laboratory testing, they uncovered an absolutely astonishing and historic reality. They confirmed that approximately 7% of Scott Kelly's core DNA expression had been permanently altered by his environment. The extensive laboratory data confirmed that a massive number of genes explicitly related to Scott Kelly's immune system, his internal DNA repair mechanisms, his cellular bone formation networks, his cardiovascular bloodstream health, and numerous alternative critical biological systems had all been radically transformed. These startling genetic results immediately prompted elite scientists around the world to ask a highly profound question. What are the ultimate biological implications for human beings who choose to leave the planet Earth permanently? Personally, I dedicated a large portion of my early medical research to tracking exactly how human physiology adapts to the space environment as a spacecraft pushes up into orbit. Based on the data, it is a certainty that our species will naturally begin to speciate, forming distinct subspecies of humans as our populations head off towards the stars. Therefore, perhaps our space colonization groups should intentionally utilize advanced gene editing to genetically modify ourselves to comfortably thrive in deep space. We are going to be forced to modify our biological code if we want our descendants to successfully resist toxic atmospheres, intense cosmic rays, and blinding solar radiation. We must ask if we are truly prepared to use genome editing tools to deliberately evolve our bodies to meet the unyielding demands of space, because the human race is moving irreversibly off this planet. Let us shift our focus to the month of February in the year 2017, when the maverick geneticist Dr. George Church of Harvard University makes a stunning public announcement that sounds like a plot point extracted straight out of a Hollywood science fiction movie. Utilizing a revolutionary genome editing apparatus known across the scientific community as CRISPR-Cas9, his research teams successfully combined the live DNA of a modern Asian elephant with genetic material extracted from a woolly mammoth, a species that has been completely extinct for nearly 4,000 years, through the highly precise substitution of 45 specific sections of the elephant's genome with the prehistoric DNA of the woolly mammoth. The geneticists confidently insist that a creature from ancient history could soon be actively walking across the Earth once again. The critical realization to extract from this breakthrough is that once a society possesses the technology to completely decode a living organism's DNA and systematically recode it at will, you simultaneously possess the absolute power to genetically alter any human being, animal or plant species on Earth. Therefore, you possess the engineering capability to intentionally construct a highly modified humanoid species that will be vastly better adapted to endure the rigours of long-term space travel and comfortably colonize the surface of a completely alternative planet. If you look at this through a historical lens, an advanced extraterrestrial civilization arriving on our world in the ancient past could have easily executed exactly the same genetic strategy. Could advanced alien creators, in full possession of that exact same DNA-altering knowledge, have systematically implemented it to assist their own colonization efforts right here on Earth thousands of years ago? An idea which traditional universities once dismissed as completely absurd now appears remarkably and eerily plausible to mainstream science. If you possess this technology, you can easily travel back in time along our evolutionary line, isolate prehistoric pre-human hominids, and systematically modify their genetic structure to create what has ultimately become modern Homo sapiens. With the exact level of gene editing technology we possess in our laboratories today, human scientists could easily select a near-sentient animal species on Earth and initiate a series of targeted genetic modifications to generate an entirely new sentient race, in addition to intentionally modifying the human biological framework to make it better suited for interstellar transit and colonization. A large number of advanced cybernetics experts propose that a true survival strategy will also require a complete merging of man and machine. They argue that our future space colonists will need to be systematically fitted with high-tech biomechatronic parts to generate a cybernetic human that is drastically smarter, faster, stronger, and more durable than a natural organism. I have been actively engaging in deep conversations with prominent research scientists and they openly state that the absolute next evolutionary phase for our species will be the widespread cyborg evolution of humanity, specifically optimized for those individuals who are destined to colonize outer space. We have always maintained this classic Hollywood image that an alien spacecraft is going to land on the White House lawn, the doors will slide open, and an organic creature, looking somewhat like us, will step out and proclaim, "Take me to your leader, Earthman." But the reality of space travel suggests it could be completely different. The entities arriving could easily be part organic and part robotic. You must realize that an alien civilization operating in our galaxy could easily be thousands of years more advanced than our own. Therefore, if an advanced culture is active out there, they have already bypassed the limits of biology and constructed these highly superior robotic bodies. Why should humanity sit around on our hands waiting for them to travel to us to give us the answers someday, when we possess the capability to transform ourselves into a massive spacefaring civilization to venture out and answer these cosmic questions for ourselves? By engineering revolutionary methods to modify the internal genetic framework of the human body, alongside organising highly complex strategies for the large-scale terraforming of alternative planets, is the human race truly venturing into uncharted territory where absolutely no one has ever travelled before? Or is our society simply realising an inescapable cosmic destiny, one that stretches all the way back to the absolute prehistoric dawn of human existence here on Earth? As far as alternative ancient astronaut theorists are concerned, the deeper our space programs venture into the unknown dark of space, the closer our species will move to finally uncovering our true, authentic origins. They firmly maintain that our baseline beginning did not manifest on the planet Earth at all, but rather inside a completely foreign, alien world situated far, far away in the deep reaches of the cosmos. Let us examine a highly significant historical milestone that took place on the specific date of December 20th, 2013, when the prominent ecologist Dr. Ellis Silver published a highly fascinating and thought-provoking book titled "Humans Are Not From Earth." Within the pages of this text, he brings forward a comprehensive biological argument outlining the reality that human beings possess a massive multitude of unique physical vulnerabilities. He meticulously highlights structural flaws such as our exceptionally slow childhood developmental timeline, an intensely heightened biological susceptibility to contract severe chronic illnesses, widespread spinal alignment problems, and an extraordinary level of difficulty and physical trauma experienced by human females during the process of giving birth. Based upon this extensive list of anatomical anomalies, he arrives at the firm conclusion that the human species most likely evolved its primary biology on an entirely alternative planetary body. When you study the data closely, there are a massive volume of clear indications proving that mankind, the human race as a whole, actually did not naturally evolve on the planet Earth. For one very basic example, if you analyse our relationship with our local star, the reality is that if we step outside into the natural sun for just a slightly extended period of time, our skin suffers painful burns. This structural vulnerability makes absolutely no logical sense from an evolutionary standpoint, unless the precise environmental conditions operating on planet Earth have undergone a massive, radically dramatic shift within the last few thousand years of our history. Furthermore, humans are routinely forced to wear dark sunglasses when stepping outdoors into normal daylight. This behavioural requirement clearly indicates that our visual organs are fundamentally not properly calibrated or adapted to process the light output of this planet's sun. In addition to these environmental misalignments, some highly compelling recent diagnostic studies conducted in the field of advanced sports medicine have revealed a fascinating reality regarding how the human body creates fat. The data shows that our biology manufactures two completely distinct types of fat tissue. One of these categories is a highly negative, unhealthy type of fat, whereas the alternative category functions as a highly positive, beneficial form of fat tissue. Interestingly enough, the clinical trials explicitly prove that if you systematically lower the surrounding environmental temperature down to a precise level of 67 degrees Fahrenheit, the human body automatically begins creating the good beneficial fat tissue and completely ceases production of the bad fat tissue. If you analyse our solar system, it is a proven fact that right near the equator on the planet Mars during its peak summertime season, the baseline temperature measures out to be exactly 67 degrees Fahrenheit. It is true that this temperature readout represents the climate of Mars in our current era, while operating with an exceptionally thin atmosphere. Therefore, you must imagine how the climate functioned in the deep past, where Mars possessed a highly robust, thick atmosphere. The average historical temperature across the vast majority of the planet's surface might have rested permanently right around 67 degrees. Another highly profound biological factor to consider is the reality of what happens when human astronauts travel into space and are completely removed from the natural cycle of Earth. Clinical monitoring proves that their internal circadian rhythms, which constitute their hardwired internal body clocks, spontaneously alter their pacing, moving away from a 24-hour cycle to settle into a precise 24.9-hour day. When you run the astronomical calculations, a cycle of exactly 24.9 hours happens to be the absolute precise rotational period required to complete a single day on the planet Mars, given the undeniable empirical fact that our internal body clocks are naturally tuned to the orbital rhythm of the planet Mars rather than the planet Earth. It serves as a powerful indicator revealing to me that our species actually travelled here to Earth from that world in our deep past. A large number of planetary researchers have brought forward the suggestion that at a specific point, billions of years ago, Mars hosted a magnificent atmosphere, but due to a series of cataclysmic cosmic events, the native Martians were forced to desperately hunt for a new home within our solar system, ultimately migrating across the short void to colonize Earth. This model forces us to confront a mind-blowing realization. What if we ourselves are the historical Martians? Is it truly possible that the entire human race actually evolved its primary lineage on the planet Mars? Furthermore, if that is the case, what specific cosmic disaster occurred to compel our ancient ancestors to permanently migrate to Earth so many millions of years ago? When you evaluate the geological data of our solar system, it becomes clear that at a specific point, billions of years in our past, the planet Mars suffered a truly catastrophic, planet-wide environmental nightmare. Its life-giving atmosphere began aggressively bleeding away into the cold vacuum of outer space, primarily because the planet's core cooled down, causing its protective magnetic field to completely collapse and leaving the surface entirely shielded from the devastating solar winds. Let us look back along our historical timeline to the year 1976, when the prominent author and alternative researcher Zecharia Sitchin brought forward a highly unique model suggesting that a massive additional 12th planet once actively operated within our solar system, positioned in a stable orbit just beyond the path of Mars, and that this world was ultimately obliterated by a violent cosmic event. Even though his bold declaration was based upon a lifetime of dedicated study focused on decoding prehistoric Sumerian cuneiform writings, his model was instantly and aggressively dismissed by the conservative academic community, who loudly ridiculed the entire concept as completely absurd and unscientific. However, in our current era, a mountain of fresh physical evidence has successfully come to light that may ultimately prove Sitchin's translations to be vastly more correct than even he believed possible. Let us shift our focus to a historic cosmic event that unfolded on the specific date of October the 7th, 2008, when a massive 80-ton space asteroid successfully penetrated the Earth's upper atmosphere and detonated with absolute fury exactly 23 miles directly above the landscape of the Nubian Desert located in the nation of Sudan. On that historic day, the extreme force of the atmospheric blast shattered the asteroid into fragments, causing an estimated 600 individual meteorites to literally shower down across the desert sands below. However, when elite geological teams rushed to the site to collect the fragments for laboratory analysis, their mineral examinations uncovered something completely incredible. The space rocks were found to be completely loaded with genuine diamonds. Furthermore, a detailed microscopic analysis of these diamonds revealed a series of pristine structural inclusions, providing definitive proof that these meteorites originated from what modern planetary scientists now firmly believe was a massive, long-lost planet that once operated inside our solar system, a world which was completely destroyed by a colossal collision thousands of years ago. When you closely analyse the current structure of the asteroid belt operating within our solar system, you quickly realise it represents an exceptionally strange anomaly. A large number of forward-thinking researchers have brought forward the suggestion that these millions of floating rocks are actually the broken structural remnants of a massive, fully formed planet that exploded into fragments at a specific point in our cosmic history. Following that model, the highly intelligent inhabitants of that obliterated world would have been forced to rapidly evacuate, either relocating their populations to the nearby surface of Mars or migrating directly to establish a presence on Earth. Personally, I am completely and thoroughly convinced that the absolute primary reason why the human race possesses such an intense, near-universal fascination with space travel is because our deep genetic memory recognises that outer space is explicitly where we came from. If there truly did exist a massive, fully realised additional planet inside our solar system that was completely destroyed by a cosmic collision, as Zecharia Sitchin originally suggested, we must ask if its sudden violent displacement could have set off a calamitous, chain reaction domino effect across all alternative nearby planets, perhaps directly triggering the atmosphere of Mars to collapse. Furthermore, how could the prehistoric Sumerians have possibly possessed such highly detailed astronomical knowledge regarding this cosmic event without access to advanced telescopes? When you map out the space between the orbit of Mars and the orbit of Jupiter in our current era, you find the asteroid belt. In my professional opinion, that belt was once a magnificent, fully operational planet, which completely exploded into ruin because a catastrophic event occurred. A literal war in space. A grand war in heaven. It is an incredible reality that nearly every single mythology across the face of our planet speaks explicitly about this prehistoric war in heaven, including our own mainstream Christian religions, where theologians describe a massive battle where the archangel Lucifer fought aggressively against the armies of the archangel Michael. You find this exact same narrative dynamic operating inside ancient Greek mythology. Every single foundational culture around the world begins its historical narrative with a detailed chronicle of a massive war in space, a violent war in the heavens. In my opinion, before that conflict erupted, the planet Mars was completely inhabited by a thriving civilization. Could the human race actively be populated by the direct biological descendants of ancient space refugees who fled the destruction of Mars? Furthermore, could this deep ancestral lineage serve as the absolute baseline foundation, explaining not only our long-standing cultural fascination with the Red Planet, but why our current generation feels so intensely compelled to return there? Let us look at a highly significant bureaucratic event that took place on the specific date of June 20th, 2018, when the White House Office of Science and Technology officially released a highly detailed 18-page strategic report. This document systematically outlines a comprehensive crisis plan detailing exactly what specific actions NASA alongside FEMA, which constitutes the Federal Emergency Management Agency, must execute over the course of the upcoming decade to successfully prevent deadly Earth-crossing space asteroids from smashing into our planet. The comprehensive document covers everything from engineering, advanced early detection satellite systems, and calculating optimal deflection strategies using nuclear or kinetic impactors, to organising structural methods for managing the chaotic global societal fallout resulting from a catastrophic impact scenario. The reality is that we share our local space with a massive population of these small celestial bodies, millions of rocky rocks that routinely migrate out of the asteroid belt and cross directly into the orbital path of the Earth. Over the course of the last 15 years, our space monitoring agencies have dedicated immense resources to studying exactly how many of these hazardous rocks exist and tracking how frequently they cross our trajectory, and the data reveals the presence of some absolutely massive objects. They are inevitably going to collide with the Earth. When evaluating this data through a statistical framework, it is absolutely not a matter of if it will happen, it is strictly a matter of when. If our planet experiences a single direct hit from a massive space asteroid that matches the exact scale of the mountain-sized rock that historically took out the dinosaurs, all human life on Earth will come to an absolute screeching halt, and our species will go completely extinct. Right now, all of our proverbial evolutionary eggs are being kept inside this one solitary planetary basket. If a sudden planetary disaster manifests, if a major asteroid incident unfolds, or if an extinction-level human disaster is created through conflict, every single element of our collective global culture, our history, and our technology can be wiped out completely instantly. Because of this constant existential threat, a steadily increasing number of prominent scientific experts have courageously come forward in recent years to openly stress the absolute critical importance of establishing permanent human settlements off the face of the Earth to guarantee the long-term continuation of our biological species. However, we must ask if humankind is truly still many long years away from possessing the actual engineering capability required to realise this highly ambitious goal. Or could our current efforts to colonise Mars actually be vastly further along the timeline than our highest levels of government are ever willing to publicly reveal? Let us look at a highly mysterious meeting that took place in Boulder, Colorado, on the specific date of August 8th, 2018, when the legendary tech titan and billionaire SpaceX founder Elon Musk officially convened a highly secret classified gathering comprised of 60 of the absolute highest level scientists, aerospace engineers, and space colonization experts on the planet. The 60 hand-picked attendees were strictly warned by the organisers that they were completely forbidden from publicising a single detail regarding what was discussed during the meeting, and they were legally barred from even acknowledging their personal participation in the event. However, despite this intense blanket of secrecy, news of the classified summit ultimately leaked out to the media, instantly sparking a massive wave of widespread speculation across the globe. Why would its organiser, a man who famously loves global media attention and rarely shies away from the spotlight, choose to execute a meeting under such extreme parameters of secrecy? A large number of independent researchers have suggested that there could easily be a direct connection to a massive political event that unfolded exactly 7 weeks earlier. This was the historic public call issued by President Donald Trump, commanding the immediate establishment of a brand new completely independent branch of the United States Armed Forces, the Space Force. When you analyse this timeline, it becomes clear that when the administration officially announced the creation of the Space Force, they were signalling something massive. What the leadership is openly stating to the world is that we are aggressively developing a major outer space initiative, a deeply complex deep space military program that is going to be systematically organised by the military, entirely controlled by the High Command, and apparently operating with highly explicit militaristic objectives in space. While a great number of citizens might find the sudden militarisation of space to be highly alarming, alternative researchers look at this crossroad and recognise that we are witnessing a truly crucial, defining moment in human history, where the United States is officially stepping into outer space in a very real, deadly, serious way. Furthermore, when you look at the operational structure of our modern space programs, the massive private sector players, the ultra-wealthy tech billionaires like Elon Musk, are increasingly becoming the specific individuals who are making the absolute primary executive decisions regarding the future of our species. It has reached a point where it appears as if the traditional government is completely losing control over the path of space exploration, or perhaps the leadership has deliberately moved the classified space architecture wholly into the private sector to intentionally bypass public oversight and freedom of information laws. It is a known fact that it is sometimes vastly more difficult for citizens or journalists to find out exactly what is going on behind the closed doors of a private corporate boardroom than it is to track what is happening inside government agencies. I once conducted an extensive personal interview with a highly experienced astronaut, and we focused heavily on the stark reality that if we do not successfully establish a backup contingency of human populations off this world, positioning colonies on the moon, building cities on Mars, and aggressively pushing beyond that boundary, the species Homo sapiens will eventually face a total existential crisis that will result in ultimate extinction. The human race thoroughly deserves to know the absolute reality, the fact that highly advanced alien intelligence is actively operating within our solar system, and our government has been fully aware of this truth in exceptional detail for a very long time. We have finally arrived at the absolute structural intersection in time where this massive secret has to break out into the open public square if our species is ever going to successfully grow, move beyond the limits of Earth, and start permanently migrating out into our own solar system. Is it truly within the realm of real possibility that the High Command within the United States government already possesses absolute confirmation that the very first human astronauts who land on Mars will immediately encounter intelligent extraterrestrial life? Furthermore, is that why they are secretly collaborating behind closed doors with elite private billionaires to accelerate the logistics and preparations for this ultimate inevitability, completely outside of the public eye? As far as alternative ancient astronaut theorists are concerned, no matter what secrets the government attempts to hide, the absolute moment our colony ships begin to migrate off Earth, the entirety of the human race will finally learn the ultimate truth that we are not alone in the universe. I am completely convinced that our society is moving exceptionally close to a monumental event, an absolute history-making discovery. This breakthrough could unfold on the surface of the Moon, it could manifest on the sands of Mars, or it could be detected orbiting Proxima Centauri or any alternative local star system. Wherever the discovery occurs, it will force all of humanity to understand that every single concept that ancient astronaut theorists have been talking about from the very beginning is absolute truth. As human beings, we love to proudly fancy ourselves as bold pioneers, and we celebrate our historical desire to always be the absolute first to conquer a new frontier, and that is a wonderful trait. Without a doubt, we are pioneers, and we have achieved the status of being the first on many magnificent milestones. However, we must prepare our minds for a completely alternative scenario. What will happen if our colony ships finally arrive on Mars, our astronauts walk out onto the landscape, and they discover that there are already massive, highly advanced artificial structures standing right in front of them? If that scenario unfolds, it will not represent a brand new beginning at all. Instead, it will represent the grand closing of a gigantic evolutionary circle.